job for them.
Well, I'm here, right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again.
You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And tonight, Kier Starmer fighting for his political life, Labour MPs plotting, hundreds of former councillors are demanding he resigns. Is the end now inevitable? I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live. A PM under pressure to quit. Kier Starmer tonight told to resign after the election bloodbath as Labour MPs openly plot to remove him. Now, though, a former minister is threatening a direct leadership challenge.
Leadership hopefuls who come forward tomorrow, then Monday morning I will put my name forward to stand for the leader of the Labour Party.
Well, here comes the cavalry. Kier Starmer brings back former Prime Minister Gordon Brown. Yes, that man there, the man who sold Britain's gold at rock-bottom prices and branded a voter a bigot for wanting stronger borders. Well, he's the person he thinks he can save his premiership.
Everything. She's just a sort of bigoted woman.
Elsewhere, trumped-up border. Belgian police are calling for their own version of Donald Trump's border wall to stop illegal migrant taxis from scurrying across the water and reaching Britain.
We want to see is more law enforcement on the beaches of France. That is a choice that we want to see made and we are willing to invest in.
Unleash the Dragon. A Royal Navy destroyer is deployed to the Middle East as tensions with Iran spiral. Is the government now reversing, not a U-turn, its position on the war?
We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Hello, good morning. How's your Saturday been? Hope you've had a good one. Joining me in DC this evening is my panel of former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell, and political commentator Hilary Fordwich, and in London, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. Hello, Benjamin. Thank you for your company once again. We'll catch up shortly. We also do have Benedict Spence joining us, but he's currently stuck on the tube. So fingers crossed he gets out of there soon. And yeah, we'll catch up with him shortly as well. Let's kick tonight off with a GB News alert. The knives are out. Tonight, Labour MPs are openly plotting against Kier Starmer. More than 100 former Labour councillors are demanding he resign, and one MP is threatening to trigger a leadership contest within days.
No leadership hopefuls who come forward tomorrow, then Monday morning I will put my name forward to stand for the leader of the Labour Party.
OK, so they're plotting, they're scheming, the vultures are circling, but apparently everything's completely under control, which reminds me of someone.
We will slaughter them all. Those invaders, their tombs will be here in Iraq.
You're not frightened now, sir?
Not at all, not at all. And you don't be frightened. We are going to tackle them and to destroy them. They are not near Baghdad. Don't believe them. It's business. They are liars.
Comical Ali from the Second Gulf War there, if that went above anyone's head. Anyway, whatever nonsense Downing Street pumps out tonight, there is absolutely no escaping that this is political DEFCON 1. Because once parties start publicly discussing how to replace their leader's already finished. He's gone. And unbelievably, breaking tonight, Kier Starmer has told the Observer newspaper that he wants a decade in Downing Street and will fight anybody who challenges him for the Labour leadership. Well, joining me in Washington is my panel, Matt Terrell and Hilary Fordwich. Hello, welcome along.
Hello,
Happy
yes,
Saturday
good evening.
Hilary, first of all, he wants 10 years in Downing Street. Is he completely and utterly deluded?
Well, actually, he's the only person I've ever heard that can sound so incredibly articulate and say absolutely nothing. He sounds so convincing, and yet the population obviously knows how ghastly he is, because look at the vote. Look at the amount of council seats that have been lost. The fact that they've lost Wales, that has been a Labour stronghold since, I believe, the 1920s, over a century, that is your massive indication. And to see now, I think it's Katherine West, she's from Australia, originally this Labour former councilwoman, that she is going to run unless something happens and Sir Keir Starmer steps down.
Yeah, she
said she's going to.
So she needs the support of around 80 fellow
81,
MPs.
that's right,
She
yes.
says she has 10, but she thinks she can get the 80 unless the cabinet get involved and reorganise themselves. And she wants Kier Starmer to take some sort of alternative position, maybe some international envoy, ambassador. I don't know, but yeah, I mean,
she's giving him till Sunday, which is tomorrow.
But he can stay on though.
And he's hanging on with his clear. And my thing is, if nobody wanted me, and if everybody was wanting to oust me, and if the population voted against me, I'd want to go. But he doesn't. He's hanging on.
Well, he's just supremely arrogant.
Yes.
Matt, Joe Biden did similar in 2024. Just tell us how that went, and why did he eventually cave into pressure?
Yeah, look, you spot on. This is the Joe Biden of the UK and Kier Starmer. And the reason why Joe Biden was feeling that pressure is because, look, politicians in general are very selfish people, in my opinion. What do they care about the most? Their own elections. And when they feel as though they're losing, that's when they start to turn on the top. And right now, what you're seeing here is not strong coattails from Kier Starmer. You're seeing someone right now who's leading to defeat his own party. But beyond that, this does look like 2024 in the sense that one of the biggest issues that voters cared about then and what voters in the UK care about now is illegal immigration. And it's not just candidates are on the ballot, their policies are on the ballot. Illegal immigration was on the ballot. That matters right now.
So how did Biden eventually, I forgot, how did he kind of throw the towel in?
Well, he was...
Was it after the debate?
After a disastrous debate where people in his own party started turning on him. And once you have that in your own political party, it's very difficult to survive.
And I think we had a letter from George Clooney, didn't we? Public letter. Do you remember that?
Yeah. But Matt is totally right, because Biden actually didn't want to go, and nobody around him. And then the thing is, you have the politicians, and then you have those with the vested interest around them. They don't want them to go either.
Well, he's an Arsenal fan, the Prime Minister, so maybe we need a public letter from Mikel Arteta or something like that calling for him to go. Let's get the thoughts of Benjamin Butterworth in London. Benjamin, hello. Just your take, 10 years of Starmer in number 10. I think he will hold on, actually. As I keep saying, I think he's supremely arrogant, and he thinks he's got a mandate to stay on.
Well, I mean, the last person in Downing Street to say he deserved 10 years was Boris Johnson, who gave similarly a front-page interview to say that. And, of course, he went rather soon afterwards. So it's a pretty bad omen. I think Keir Starmer might last 10 days, but not 10 years. What's happening right now is that you've got Katherine West, who is a Labour MP on the soft left of the party, but she's fairly uncontroversial, very low profile. She doesn't want to be leader or Prime Minister. She's not saying that. But she has fired the starting gun because there is this paralysis within the top of the Labour Party that is nobody wants to be the first person to pitch against Keir Starmer because, you know, the person that does that is reflected on badly. I think it's a bit like Joe Biden in the sense that it was blatantly obvious that he was not going to lead the Democrats to success, but there is a self-interest around everybody near the top to keep their own position. And so what's going to happen in the next 48 hours, I think, will determine whether Keir Starmer can survive. It's worth noting that if Katherine West, this Labour MP, comes forward and Keir Starmer gets more votes, then there can't be a leadership election for 12 months. So it's always possible that you end up with a situation where he is completely safe in Downing Street at the end of this week.
I'm trying to remember who was it that moved first with Boris. Was it Rishi resigning when he was Chancellor?
I
right in saying that?
I forget exactly, but I remember I was at a wedding in Poland and no one was paying attention to the wedding because I think every cabinet minister, one by one, resigned in quick succession. And that's the nature of it. You know, on Monday, Keir Starmer will come out and he will give what he calls his reset speech. Slightly lost track of how many reset speeches he's done. But there'll be two things, a reset speech and a cabinet meeting. Now, he is saying, everyone hold off until I've given that speech. I'm going to lay out the path forward. So that could be his saving grace, or the cabinet could, similar to Boris Johnson, sit the Prime Minister down and say, Mr Starmer, I'm afraid this is the end of the path.
His reset speech gives a whole new meaning to the Great Reset, doesn't it? I know he's a big fan of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, Kier Starmer. He prefers Davos to Westminster. Let's get the thoughts of David Maddox, the political editor of The Independent, who has done a piece on Katherine West, this Labour MP who is demanding action at the top of government. David, great to see you. Thank you for coming back on the show. Really appreciate it. Just explain for viewers and listeners. Yeah, go on. What's going on here with this with Katherine West?
Yes, I mean, she gave us an interview. I realise she's been giving interviews around this afternoon and this evening, I mean, I completely agree with what Ben said there, actually, Benjamin just said there. The important thing about it, Katherine West is not going to be the next Prime Minister, but there were a whole load of very serious candidates who didn't want to be the first to jump, didn't want to be the ones held responsible. She's effectively given them permission to go for it. You know, Wes Streeting was hoping for a stalking horse so he could, swoop in. The same with Angela Rayner. In fact, just before Katherine West news broke, I was looking at, there was a lot of discussion about whether Angela was going to go early next week. She's certainly got the numbers. Wes Streeting's got the numbers. And it looks like Ed Miliband might be in with a chance as well. I mean, they're all waiting and, they've all now got their chance.
David, let me just read you some copy from this interview that the Prime Minister has done tomorrow in The Observer. He says, the Prime Minister, he wants a decade in Downing Street and he'll fight anyone who challenges him for the leadership. The PM described his government as a 10-year project of renewal and asked whether he'd definitely lead his party into the next general election and serve a full second term. He said, yes, I will. He said he would set out with clarity his values and convictions with an optimistic message focused on the future. I mean, what do you mean set out your values and conviction? It's been nearly 2 years you've been at the helm. What are you talking about, man? Setting out your values. You did that during the election campaign, no?
I mean, you mentioned how many resets a bit. I've lost count as well. I've sat through a number of those reset speeches. I thought my ears were going to bleed during a few of them. I mean, every time he tries to set out his values, something else goes wrong, or he goes through a list which means nothing to people. I really think, this is a guy, unfortunately, I think he is actually a decent man, but he's never managed to kind of get the engagement of the public, let alone their kind of love and trust. And, the election results last week was just running to the end of the road, and I don't see any way out of it, actually.
Okay. David, great interview with Katherine West. I urge everybody to read it on the in your paper, and who knows whether her intervention will spark a riot, a revolution at the top of government. David Maddox, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Political editor of The Independent. With me now is political commentator Peter Barnes. Peter, good morning. Thank you for joining us on The Late Show Live. Kier Starmer said in this interview, where he pledged to do 10 years, he said he would put Europe at the heart of his premiership. He also revealed the government is close to agreeing the terms of a youth mobility scheme with the European Union. I mean, if you want to hold on for 10 more years, I don't think publicly announcing you're going to be cozying back up to Europe in the light of reform, having trounced the locals, is going to do you any favours, Peter.
No, I've got to say, it's great to be with you, Ben, but I completely agree. But this is the thing, Kier Starmer is now reaching for anything he can hold on to keep his head above a very rapidly rising ocean around him. Because realistically, the problem of the Labour Party isn't just Starmer. It's actually they have no lane forward. If they move closer to Europe, they move to the left, then they lose the reform vote that's already kind of started to wander off, as we've clearly seen. But if they move to the right, they then start to lose more of the progressive vote that they've lost to the Greens and to the nationalist vote as well. If they don't move at all, it looks like they haven't learned a single thing, and therefore voters will punish them even harder. The problem with the Labour Party is not Kier Starmer, it's the entire policy agenda that they've got themselves trapped into, because they never understood that change is just a word. You actually have to do something when you get into power. And when you do get into power, the one thing Kier Starmer has never understood, he won that election because he wasn't a Conservative. That's it. That's the only reason that he won. It is what we call the loveless majority. He's got the numbers on the paper, but when you look at vote share, very few people put the X in the box for the Labour Party, and that's what really matters when it comes to having that mandate. And this is the big thing. I mean, whether it's Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, or Bridget Phillipson, Al Kearns, or the Katherine West question, whoever, it is literally, how would the country like to kill itself? Because would you rather be shot, hung, killed, whatever? Because it's just one chaos after another. Interestingly, just to pick up on what Benjamin said, the last Prime Minister that faced one of those situations was Theresa May. The ERG tried to oust her and actually made her more secure for the year. However, as we know, once that kind of starting pistol has been fired, it's unlikely, whether you win the vote or not, whether you actually stay in power, because your authority is shot, and Kier Starmer never had any to begin with.
Yeah, Peter, just very quickly, we've got a minute left. I guess the problem with Kier Starmer is, the Prime Minister, is that he's ideologically he has no vision. He doesn't believe in anything. He blows like the wind, and he can't sort of throw himself at any sort of way of governing because he's just a political robot.
Yeah, it's fascinating how a person like that has actually become Prime Minister. I don't really understand how that's happened, but I think he just believes that he's got the job because he's a good person and he's doing it for the country, which is a phrase that he keeps saying. So he wants to do something for the country, just resign and let the chaos unfold, and then we can all move on with the rest of our day, because he's done for as far as I'm concerned. But I do think, knowing him, he's as stubborn as anything. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. Appreciate it. As Hillary said, he talks word salad, and he is the Michelin star chef of word salad. He can cook up a right word salad. He is the leading star on that front. He'll talk and talk and talk and say a lot. Talk a lot without really saying much. GBNews.com/your say. Shout louder. You said, so the arrogant Starmer wants 10 years in number 10. Why 10 years? Is that the orders of the net zero mob or the Fabians or the globalists? Who's pulling Starmer's strings? We have a right to know. I'm sick of all the secrecy and deceit. Probably the Fabians. Who knows?
And he has no North Star. That's the big issue, I think.
He doesn't believe in anything. At least people, Jeremy Corbyn, at least you know what he stands for. Nigel Farage, Donald Trump, Angela Rayner, you probably know what she stands for. Still ahead on the Late Show Live, Belgium, of all nations, is pushing for a Trump-style border to stop illegal migrants from launching off their shores and into Britain. Do we need to get some tips from Texas? I'll tell you what they're doing. But first tonight...
What did she say? Everything. She's just a sort of bigoted woman.
And if you wanted more proof that this government is devoid of inspiration and ideas and motivation, the Labour Party has brought back a man who infamously lost them their grip on power, Gordon Brown. Will it be enough? I think I know the answer to that. Back in a second.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again
to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah,
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Do you think that visibly Jewish people are safe on the streets of London?
Some of Britain's biggest institutions have written an open letter to the Jewish community vowing to fight anti-Semitism, but are words enough? I suggest not. That's coming up shortly. But first tonight, Labour wiped out, the PM clinging on, and reform surging all across the nation that's desperate for strong borders. So what does Sir Kier Starmer do to bolster his defences, I wonder? Well, he brings in the guy who thinks controlling immigration is for bigots.
There's too many people now who aren't vulnerable, but they can claim, and people who are vulnerable can't get claim.
But a local resident, Mrs Duffy, echoed the concerns of many about the numbers arriving in the UK from overseas.
At 6 months. You can't say anything about the immigrants because you're saying that but all these Eastern Europeans what are coming in, where are they flocking from?
A million people come from Europe, but a million people, British people, have gone into Europe. You do know there's a lot of British people staying in Europe as well.
It looked as if the two had parted on good terms, but Mr Brown was still wearing the microphone that Labour had requested Sky News attached to his lapel.
That was a disaster. Well, just... Okay. Should never have put me with that woman. Whose idea was that?
I don't know, I didn't see.
That's Sue, I think. They're just ridiculous.
I'm not sure they'll go with that one.
They will go with it.
What did she say?
Oh, everything. She's just a sort of bigoted woman. Said she used to be Labour. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Oh dear. Gordon Brown there, one of the most hapless Prime Ministers we've ever had, whisked into Downing Street this morning to shore up Kier Starmer's premiership. A man, by the way, who thinks strong borders is for bigots, at a time when the nation has never been more febrile about immigration and controlling who comes into the country. Just how out of touch is Sir Kier Starmer with this appointment? And before I tell you what Gordon Brown's new role will be, let's just enjoy the aftermath of that infamous bigotry scandal in 2010.
Her face says it all.
Well, what do you think about that, Mrs. Duffy? Disgusted.
But you said to me before that you were a Labour supporter. I mean,
yes.
What's this done to that? What's that?
Well, I don't think I'll vote. I don't think I'll vote now. It's a postal vote and I don't have to send it in. He's just absolutely... Well, he's shut me down completely.
It is rare indeed that a party leader would break away from campaigning, come to the home of just one voter and issue what must surely be a grovelling apology. The two spoke for close to an hour.
I've just been talking to Gillian. I'm mortified by what's happened. I've given her my sincere apologies. I misunderstood what she said, and she has accepted that there was a misunderstanding, and she's accepted my apology.
It was a gaffe of Kier Starmer's standards, so no surprise they've been sipping tea together in number 10 this week. Anyway, back onto it. What job has Gordon Brown been given by the PM? Let's have a think. Is it immigration czar? Chief gang smasher, maybe? Head of OAP bashing? Director of Farmer Harmers? No. Ready? Wait for it. Global Finance Special Envoy. Global Finance Special Envoy to the man who infamously and stupidly sold a huge pile of Britain's treasured gold reserves at a generational low. He sold 12.7 million ounces of our gold, your gold, at historic market lows for just $3.5 billion. Sold today at $4,700 an ounce. That would net the public coffers $60 billion, or 44 billion quid. I'm sure Rachel Reeves will be absolutely chuffed with it. It is objectively one of the worst trades in market history, and he's now the UK government's global finance special envoy. Absolutely insane. This is what Nigel Farage said of Gordon Brown's market suicide in the European Parliament some years ago.
You've told us that somehow you're the economic guru. You're the man that can save the world. Well, I remember very well your first big act as Chancellor when you sold 400 metric tons of gold on the world's exchanges at $275 an ounce. At today's valuation, that would be $10 billion higher. But it isn't just the fact you got it wrong, because we can all get it wrong. It was the fact that you announced in advance how much you were going to sell and on what day you were going to sell it. It was an error so basic that the average A-level economics student, even in these educationally devalued times, wouldn't have done.
Welcome back, Gordon Brown. There we go. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel, Hilary and Matt. Hilary, I don't know what to say. Take it away.
Well, I think I know now why he was brought in, because back in 2007 to 2010, he had, at the time it was called spectacularly unpopular. He was about 17% to 22% popularity. 17%! So I think Sir Kier Starmer has brought him in because now he's got someone more unpopular than him. But now, in all seriousness, this global finance role, this global envoy role in terms of finance, it's ridiculous, because look at the Labour government as a whole. How many of them have held any sort of position in business? Now, contrast that to Scott Bessent here in the US. He is a Wall Street guru. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's head of the Treasury. He's been in finance, and he's getting this country back on track. You need someone who's come right out of the London financial district, someone who has the expertise. That's the kind of person who needs to be in that role, not someone who is spectacularly unpopular and never done anything in finance that he can hold a candle to anyone with any proper expertise.
I think Bessent used to work for hedge funds. I think he worked for Soros. He's worth nearly £1 billion, I think, $1 billion.
Yes.
Matt, what does it say about Kier Starmer bringing him, Gordon Brown, back in to sort of bolster up his defences? What does that say?
Well, I think it says we have an insecure leader right now in the UK. This is someone who's on the political defence, not on the offence. And look, the truth is, it's not about any past prime minister. It's not about any advisor or cabinet member for him. It's about him, Kier Starmer. He's the problem. And right now, he's got a political crisis on his hands. And bringing in a former prime minister, by the way, who oversaw a political defeat in 2010, would be like Joe Biden bringing in Hillary Clinton. You know, talk about bad quotes. This is Hillary Clinton who called voters, deplorable. So, look, the bottom line here is you can't bring in anybody right now, I don't think, to support or help him. I think it's on him as a leader. And at the end of the day, voters are not just upset with him as a leader. They're upset with the policies. You think about, the issue of violence. You think about anti-Semitic problems taking place in the UK and illegal immigration. Just like 2024, like I said earlier, illegal immigration is a major crisis for voters in the UK.
It's number one, and I don't understand. I keep saying night after night, why don't these people get it? They are highly educated people. Kier Starmer, who's the Director of Public Prosecutions, I'm sure he's got degrees coming out of his ears, all sorts. He still doesn't get it, though. It just proves that you can be as academic as you want. If you don't have the sort of streetwise connection with the people of your nation, you ain't having it. No luck to you.
It's a practical, hands-on experience. That's what it is. Been there, done that.
Just close the board, sort the borders out. That's it. It's not hard. Forget Gordon Brown, forget your focus groups, forget everything else. Just sort the borders out, and that's half the job done. Let's get the thoughts of political commentator Benedict Spence and Benjamin Butterworth. Benedict, welcome along. Well, the tube did you a bit dirty, I understand, but welcome along anyway. What can we say about Kier Starmer and Gordon Brown? What does it tell us?
Well, I think the thing to bear in mind here is that as much as we can all have a bit of a pot shot at him about his financial record, it's not really about finance, because if it was, he'd have been given a role that was slightly more, hefty than simply, czar to the provinces, going out into the world and discussing global finance with people. That's not going to actually achieve anything. The reason why he's brought him back into a form of government, and let's be clear, it's not really government at all, but he's putting him front and centre, is because of the Mandelson scandal. That's because Gordon Brown has been the most vociferous critic of Peter Mandelson these past few years. He was the one sort of at the forefront saying, you shouldn't be bringing this man back at all. And he's also the one that really stuck the boot in the aftermath of Mandelson's fall from grace. And that's also why this is not the only appointment that's been made today, because, of course, Harriet Harman has also been brought back. She has been brought back in the role of, I think it's something like advisor on women and girls or something like that, which, of course, is the other big criticism of Sir Kier Starmer, which is, of course, that having put Peter Mandelson into his position as ambassador in the first place and given his links to Jeffrey Epstein, that what he was effectively doing was spitting in the face of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and that, of course, affects women and girls. And it's been something that's been he's been highly criticised for by a lot of female backbenchers. That's what this is about. This is about trying to create a bit of a separation from himself and that scandal, because that scandal is not going away. I know it sort of ebbs and flows and it gets a little hot and then it gets less so, but the point is it's not ending anytime soon. So what he wants are people on board who he can point to and say, there's a break with the past.
Benedict, such a great point. And do you know what? I'd admit I'd forgotten temporarily, amid the chaos and the excitement of the local elections, I'd completely forgotten, Benjamin, about the Mandelson situation, Kier Starmer saying he didn't know what was going on. I'd completely forgotten. And if people thought he should have gone then for that, which arguably he should have, surely he has to go now after the local elections. His arrogance, again, I keep saying, is just supreme. It's unrivaled.
Well, first of all, sorry to the viewers that we've got Ben, Benedict and Benjamin, so it's going to be confusing about who's talking to who. I think that was a good assessment by Benedict, but I would suggest that there is a second reason, which is that bringing Gordon Brown and Harriet Harman back in is aimed at his MPs more than it's aimed at the public, because what he's trying to do there is that you've got two people who are sort of universally respected and well-liked within the Labour movement by Labour MPs, and it's trying to say that these old wise hands of the Labour movement are coming in, they're supporting my administration, they're showing that it can be stable, and so that, he hopes, will put them off wanting to do some kind of leadership election. Now, first of all, Harriet Harman already had the job that he's just given her. She's had it since they came into government. He's just re-announced it, I think, with an ever so slightly different name. So that shows how thin the appointment is. But I believe this is more aimed at the parliamentary party than the public. The special envoy role is not a serious role. God knows if it'll involve anything meaningful. You'll remember Sue Gray was special envoy to the nations and regions for about 3 days. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we hear very little from either of these politicians, Brown or Harman. It's about trying to steady the tiller, and I don't think it will work.
OK, thanks, Benjamin. Great analysis from both of you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's get the thoughts of Anna Mihailova, the political editor at Times Radio. Anna, welcome along. Thank you for coming back on the Late Show Live. What's your take on what we've seen over the past couple of days?
Well, I mean, on the two appointments, the analysis is completely correct that it's aimed at the MPs, and it's aimed as a signal that Kier Starmer, who is absolutely embattled in number 10 right now and facing threats from multiple fronts, it's aimed at saying that he's got the well-respected figures of the party, the Labour establishment behind him, very much embodied by Gordon Brown, who, you know, I mean, you've obviously listed some of the controversies, but he also has a lot of fans within the party. He is certainly someone who was a chancellor, who was a very, very strong chancellor. One of Rachel Reeves's problems is she's probably one of the weakest chancellors we've seen in decades. And there is an attempt here to signal that Kier Starmer is focused on policy and growth and has that support network of two grandees. But while it's aimed at MPs, it is going down so strangely today. It is such a weird move. It hasn't really been explained, to be honest, that there was no one was really laying the groundwork for it, and even the messaging around it. Number 10 put out this video when they made the announcement of, it was footage of Kier Starmer with Gordon Brown and Rachel Reeves without any words, of just them talking in the garden, and then almost as if Rachel Reeves was standing officiating a wedding ceremony between the two of them. There's this extraordinary shot where she's standing almost like a minister, and then
front page
Brown
of the Telegraph
and Starmer are looking into each other's eyes, and it's just set to sort of just background music. It's very strange. That's been specifically pointed as something to send a signal that this doesn't mean that Kier Starmer is saying that Rachel Reeves's position is under threat, but you see it there on the front of the newspapers tomorrow. I mean, it's been such a strange day, and it's gone down very, very badly because, you see, party management has been one of the problems of Kier Starmer's leadership from day one. There have been noses out of joint from the start. I can tell you so many examples of promotions and elevations into government of MPs who had just been elected in 2024, which really upset MPs who had been there for years, you know, doing the hard work of shadow opposition for over a decade, 14 years, as we know. I mean, you know, immediately there were people who are unhappy. With every reshuffle, there have been more appointments like that. There is a perception around Kier Starmer and the people around him that they give jobs for the boys, that they prefer people within their own network, and they don't listen to the wider party. So if you've just had time and again, MPs feel like they're not being listened to, not being heard on policy, on key decisions that have absolutely backfired, like winter fuel allowance, like the benefits, attempts of changing benefits that then had to be, you know, completely U-turned on. And of course, the appointment of Peter Mandelson. You had Diane Abbott stand up in the Commons a couple of weeks ago and say, to frankly great effect that went down well on all sides of the House, that if they'd just asked people like her, they would never have appointed him. The appointment today just look to people like Starmer is out of touch, doesn't know what the country wants and doesn't know what the party wants. And it's actually, you know, there's an argument to say that while people are waiting for this relaunch speech he's about to give on Monday, these two appointments have precipitated people thinking he needs to go. And we have had an MP today say that unless the cabinet moves against him, she will launch a leadership challenge on Monday. This is an MP called Katherine West,
Katherine West,
former minister, who lots of people in the country wouldn't have heard of. She doesn't have a very high profile, but she has just said, look, I'm going to be a stalking horse unless senior cabinet ministers move first.
Yeah, she said tonight she needs 80 colleagues to back her. She says she has 10, but she's confident she could get to 80. So, yeah. Very quickly, Anna, you've got 10 seconds. Sorry. Any idea when this Gordon Brown thing was filmed and agreed? Surely it wasn't filmed and then published this morning. Any ideas?
They've said that they did meet this morning, first number 11 and then number 10. So I think it was done this morning.
Just, what, a reaction to the local elections?
I mean, quite. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, crazy. Insane. OK. Anna, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on with us, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. Anna Mihalova, political editor at Times Radio. GBNews.com/Your Say. Paul, you've said Brown and Blair also accelerated the PFI schemes to make gullible voters believe they were having new schools, hospitals, police stations, etc. And they are, PFIs, a massive scam. Still ahead, though, on the Late Show Live tonight.
And I can confirm that HMS Dragon has arrived in the Eastern Mediterranean.
HMS Dragon on the move. It's been shipped to the Middle East as tensions with Iran spiral, but will it even get there in time? We know how long it took to get from Portsmouth to just off Crete a month or so ago. But anyway, first tonight.
It's all about common sense.
Could common sense be about to reach Europe? A new Trump-style border is being demanded to stop illegal crossings to Britain, and yeah, it's Belgium, of all people, who are demanding it. More on that next.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Still ahead, dramatic scenes at Denver Airport in Colorado overnight after a commercial jet struck a person on the runway. Really tragic story, dramatic. I'll be speaking to an expert about just what went wrong very shortly. But first, breaking tonight. Belgian authorities are considering sea barriers to stop migrant taxi boats reaching French waters before they eventually cross to Britain. A senior Belgian police chief says chains of buoys, similar to barriers used on the US-Mexico border, could help disrupt people smuggling gangs operating from the Belgian coast. That's as illegal channel crossings have now passed the 200,000 mark. It's a grim milestone, isn't it? 200,000 of these people. With me now is former Home Office Minister Tom Pursglove. Tom, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. So these buoys are basically sea walls which are anchored to the floor of the river, ocean, whatever, and they've got nets as well so people can't sort of jump out their boats and swim under them. And they use them in Texas, in the Rio Grande, to stop South Americans coming into the USA. Why can't we just do that here?
Well, look, I'm somebody who has long maintained that we should learn the lessons of the things that work elsewhere. And I argued in government that we should take a really careful look at the Australian example, and we adopted elements of that in the approach that we took. But we should likewise take this seriously. And in the context of inland waterways, there has been some use of these sorts of barriers. But I won't hold my breath on this, because consistently what we've seen is the French government be very reticent to do much with this. It would be very good, actually, if the Belgians were willing to take the lead and were to deploy this on their inland waterways that lead to the ocean, but also where you've got stretches of coastline. If this could be introduced, that would certainly help to perhaps tackle some of the embarkations that happen from Belgium currently, because what we've seen is the criminal gangs getting more sophisticated, and what they tend to do is when you put an intervention in place, they find a workaround and perhaps launch boats from elsewhere. So I think this is certainly something that should be looked at, but the challenge will be that unless you have this around the entirety of the coastline, I just don't think it will do the job to the extent that's needed.
This is the US-Mexico border on your screens now if you're watching on television. They're just basically massive buoys and they stretch all along the river and as I said, they're anchored to the floor. They're pretty much impossible to get past. So the Belgians, particularly a chap called Christian de Ridder, who is the deputy police chief in Westcott, which is an area where 1 in 5 boats come to the UK. So they start in Belgium, they actually go down to around Dunkirk, pick up people in shallow waters, and then carry on to the United Kingdom. So Christian de Ridder, the deputy police chief, he says we have to stop them before they get to the UK. We have to find a way to stop them on the water. If we could put up a naval barrier such as this so they don't get into French waters, everything will stop. It's quite refreshing actually to hear, and I wouldn't have expected it from the Belgians, to hear them coming up with ideas and sounding semi-enthusiastic to find a way of stopping this, because I can't say the same for the French, Tom.
I agree, and in fact it was the case that the Belgians were always far more cooperative on this and took this far more seriously, in my view, than what we saw from French counterparts. And there are those lessons that should be learned. We should take the examples where stuff is working and deploy it. What I would say, though, is that everything that you do, all of this stuff has an impact and it's very helpful. But ultimately, this comes back to every single time to the willingness to detain and remove or relocate every last arrival. Until you do that, this is just such a lucrative trade. And we've seen that in the figures this week. That 200,000 arrivals number, with only around 7,000 of those people removed, because you can't remove people to Eritrea or Sudan or Iran, which does mean that you need that sort of third country option, like Rwanda was, to be able to remove people. So I would suggest that the collective effort really needs to concentrate around trying to develop that sort of solution again, but also changing the laws, ECHR, the Refugee Convention, Human Rights Act, all of those usual suspects when it comes to removal being frustrated. But if they can develop these sorts of barriers, building on the experience that they've had on those inland waterways, which has helped, has made a difference, has often slowed the pace with which crossings have been able to be made, although we often see repeat attempts to try and get here and people then succeeding, because they know that if they can get here, the chances are that they're just going to be able to stay. And what we've often seen is that new tactics that have been deployed have often been deployed in a very performative sense for a very short period of time before then quietly being dropped, particularly by the French authorities, where, for example, they popped a boat on a beach sometime last year. We've never seen a repeat of that ever since.
Yeah, interesting. I think you need to remove, obviously, the pull factors, the hotels, the freebies. You need to erect, I would argue, these are like a great idea. They work in Texas. They're 1,000 feet long chains of buoys across not just the whole channel, of course, that's impossible. They put them up in high traffic areas so that migrants can't climb over them. And it basically renders the rest of the ocean, the channel, impossible because the journey is just too long. Tom, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It says here in the article, when Robert Jenrick was an immigration minister, he championed this tactic, and he actually visited El Paso on the Texas-Mexico border to view the barriers. He urged the French to do the same across their own beaches and their inland waterways, but the French said no. No. So there we go. That's all it takes. The French just say no, not interested, and that's it. A Home Office spokesperson, thanks Tom, Home Office spokesperson said the government's bearing down on small boat crossings. We've removed or deported almost 60,000 who are here illegally. The Home Secretary has announced sweeping reforms to tackle illegal migration in modern times, removing incentives that bring illegal migrants to the UK and scaling up the return of those with no right to be here. Very good. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
And we're thrilled to swear in our new Secretary of Homeland Security, a great American patriot, to put it mildly, Mark Wayne Bullen. And I want to just say, Mark Wayne, congratulations. Great. You deserve it. You're a great man.
Well, that man right there, who's heading up the Department of Homeland Security, has warned that the World Cup in just, next month, could be under threat. And the reason may surprise you. But first tonight, if Starmer had a plot, he's lost it. That's the front page of the Daily Mail. If Kier Starmer had a plot, he's lost it. That's the verdict of them. Do you agree? Back in a sec.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Still ahead, some of Britain's biggest institutions have written an open letter to the Jewish community vowing to fight anti-Semitism. More on that in just a second, but first let's delve into the front page of the Mail on Sunday tomorrow, which looks at, well, the headline reads, "If Starmer had a plot, he's lost it. Veteran MP's withering verdict as zombie PM faces stalking horse challenge." And rival circle number 10. Benedict, Benjamin, Hilary and Matt are here. Benedict, your take on this headline: "If Starmer had a plot, he's lost it. Veteran MP's withering verdict." Is he a zombie PM?
Oh, he's been a zombie PM for a very long time. I'd love to know who this is that's being quoted. I wonder if it's Ed Miliband, who was quoted on the front page of the Times the other day, briefing that maybe it was time for the Prime Minister to set out a timeline. The reality is he's been on a hiding to nothing, the Prime Minister, ever since he attempted to force through welfare reforms and his own backbenchers managed to twist his arm to the point where the changes inevitably, in the end, became negligible. So when you're in a position where even if you've got a great majority of 80 or whatever it is, if you can't actually force your MPs to vote for sensible things and they insist on going down the path of doing silly things, then eventually you are going to be ousted as Prime Minister because you don't have any authority. The Mandelson scandal has sort of exacerbated it, and there's been any number of other little things chipping away at the Prime Minister's authority, be that his housing minister who had to resign over a housing scandal, be that his corruption czar who had to resign over a corruption scandal. You know, these little things that just kept on going and going and going. But I do think that it was that. That was the key moment, actually, when he saw the ballooning welfare bill, and he thought, I've got to try and do something about that, and his own MPs said, not a chance. That was the moment at which he was done for.
I think the veteran MP quoted on this Mail front page is Graham Stringer, an MP since 1997. Benjamin, I think you, correct me if I'm wrong, voted for Kier Starmer. Would you back back Andy Burnham now to take over if he can find a safe seat, which is another conversation.
Well, yeah, this Mail on Sunday front page says that Andy Burnham is a step closer to Downing Street, while he's still many, many steps away. Nobody is more desperate to see Andy Burnham in Downing Street than Andy Burnham, the self-styled King of the North, who could not be more desperate to get back to Westminster if he tried. Now, look, let's have a reality check. Andy Burnham is never going to be Labour leader or Prime Minister. He has tried and failed badly twice before. So long as Kier Starmer has a majority on the executive of the Labour Party, which he does, he will keep blocking Andy Burnham, even if a safe seat were to become available. So there's no route there. And let's look at the local election results. In Manchester, Labour did very badly. They lost loads of seats to the Greens and to Reform. In Angela Rayner's area, Tameside, a borough in Greater Manchester, they lost everything. And so, you know, the idea that Andy Burnham is going to be coming in is not going to happen. I think that Kier Starmer has had a problem with Andy Burnham for years. They really don't like each other, I think, on a personal level as well as a political level. But the person that, if you were putting a bet on, that I think would have a chance is Wes Streeting, and I think he is a pretty impressive character. If you look at the local elections again, Redbridge, which is his area of London, they gained some councillors. So there is a lesson for winning there.
Yeah, I quite like Wes Streeting, not politically, but at least he has the balls to come on GB News and debate his position, which most other Labour ministers don't now. And Hillary, you were just looking at that graphic. We destroyed our rivals in the election coverage yesterday, destroyed Sky News, destroyed the BBC News channel. It was a historic day for GB News. And that says it all. Why aren't Labour ministers coming on our channel, apart from Wes Streeting, to put their position forward to the nation? It's our viewers and listeners who they're begging to or trying to win over and appeal. And they just don't do it, bar Wes Streeting, which I respect him for.
Right, because they don't have to win their base. They need to win the kind of people that are watching GB News. Who's watching GB News? People that go to work, and I actually think that's wonderful what Nigel Farage says. I think he referred to them at one point like alarm clock people that get up, go to work every day and aren't living off benefits. So those are the kind of people that are watching GB News, and people also that care about the great Britain that it used to be. And I think that that's something that they're absolutely missing. People that don't come on GB News, obviously they're very afraid of their own policies. And actually, I don't think at this it's really going to matter who's at the head of the Labour Party. I think they're done. I think they're shot. They've lost too many council seats. It's over 1,000 done.
Matt, just really quickly, you do get some Democrats coming on sort of right-leaning channels here in the US. Fetterman, I think, the Democrat of Pennsylvania, goes on to Fox News quite a lot and vice versa. I mean, are Labour missing a trick there by not really coming on GB News?
Well, I think you got to take a playbook out of President Trump's playbook, and that is, you know, look, going everywhere. You know, what did President Trump do in 2024? He went and held a rally in New York. He went on the Joe Rogan podcast. He was everywhere, and that helps. And so, look, in this day and age, you have to go to platforms that may disagree with you, but you got to answer tough questions. That's what voters want. So you should come on GB News. You should come on various platforms as a candidate or as a politician. I think you owe that as well to voters and your constituents.
You're not trying to win your base. You're trying to win those undecided.
Right.
Yeah. Great stuff. Very quick comment from Paul talking about the small boats. You said, Ben, the Belgians realise if they become a point of entry to the UK, they'll be overrun like Calais. It's both in our interest and theirs to stop it before it takes hold. I thought that was a really good comment, Paul. Thank you so much, Paul Henderson. Right, more coming up on The Late Show Live in the next hour, including this.
We need the Labour government nationally to change course.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel. Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Live from Washington, D.C, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Tonight, Sir Kier Starmer fighting for his political life, Labour MPs plotting and scheming, hundreds of former councillors are demanding he quit, but is the end now inevitable? I'm Ben Leo and this is The Late Show Live. The Prime Minister under pressure to quit. Sir Kier Starmer tonight told to resign after the election bloodbath as Labour MPs openly plot to remove him. Now, a former minister's threatening a direct leadership challenge.
Leadership hopefuls who come forward tomorrow, then Monday morning I will put my name forward to stand for the leader of the Labour Party.
Well, Brown to the rescue. That's Gordon Brown to you. Sir Kier Starmer brings back the former Prime Minister, the man who sold Britain's gold at rock-bottom prices and branded a voter concerned about immigration a bigot. That's the person Starmer thinks can save his premiership.
Everything. She's just a sort of bigoted woman.
Bigoted woman. Elsewhere, Unleash the Dragon. A Royal Navy destroyer is deployed to the Middle East as tensions with Iran spiral. Is the government now reversing its position on the war?
We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Airport's tragedy. Horror audio from air traffic control has captured the hellish scenes after a person was hit by a plane and killed on a major airport runway here in America. Good morning to you. Hope you're well. Joining me this evening in Washington, D.C. is my panel. Former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell, the political commentator, bigoted woman, Hillary Ford. And in London, only joking.
No, I know.
Only joking. And in London, Benedict Spence and Benjamin Butterworth, bigoted Benjamin Butterworth. There we go. Right, thank you both. Appreciate it. Right, let's kick. I'm a deplorable. There you go. I'll accept that. Thank you very much. Right, let's kick things off with a GB News alert because tonight there's a growing question hanging over British politics. Is Sir Kier Starmer starting to look a little bit like Jeb Bush? Not politically identical, I get it, but symbolically, because Jeb Bush represented something very specific in American politics. The cautious, managerial establishment candidate who suddenly collided with a populist political earthquake he simply didn't understand. He just didn't get it. Donald Trump completely changed the rules of the Republican Party and politics in 2016. He completely saw off his rival, Jeb Bush. Look at Britain, though, now. Nigel Farage doing the exact same thing. And here's where the comparison becomes really uncomfortable for Labour. Once parties start believing their own leader can't emotionally connect with voters anymore, I argue I don't think he ever could in the first place, their internal panic spreads fast. It's rapid. And that's exactly what happened to Jeb Bush. And it seems to be happening to Kier Starmer too. My panel are with me now. Matthew Stadlen, actually in the UK, and also political strategist Tiffany Marie Brannan. Hello to you both, Matthew and Tiffany. Ladies first, Tiffany. Are we seeing a replication of Jeb Bush where I guess Kier Starmer's just rudderless? He doesn't know what to do with Nigel Farage.
I think that is a very fair comparison to make. And you know, when you think about Jeb Bush and something that on a policy level, he wasn't able to connect with his voter base, it was immigration, which, you know, he was pro anchor babies and had all these legislation and policy that you kind of see, you know, Kier Starmer in a way very obviously having major immigration problems over there. But I think you have an unenthusiastic, uncharismatic, unanchored human being that is completely unable to connect to a wider audience. I'm not excited about Kier Starmer. I don't think any of my Brit friends are. The same way we weren't excited about Jeb Bush, no matter how big he did that exclamation point after his name on all of his campaign ads. I think that was to try to add a little, you know, oomph that he just is naturally missing.
Tiffany, quick question to you on a personal level. What's the Americans' reaction been to what we saw in the UK with these local elections? They're sometimes described inaccurately as kind of our midterms, maybe similar, but not quite. What's your reaction? What are people saying about what's happened?
That it was a bloodbath, that it was horrible, that it was a red alert for the Labour Party. And I think that it's, you know, a dollar late and a day short. Because what you really see here, it's very reminiscent of me to, you look at what happened with President Trump, where we had, you know, the 2016 admin come in, then we lost and we had Biden come in and destroy the country and be his, you know, decrepit self. And then we win again in 2024. It also always reminded me of Winston Churchill and then Neville Chamberlain coming in and then Winston Churchill coming back. I see this same thing here, especially with how it's being reported, where there seems to be an awakening in the United Kingdom that maybe we do want reform. Maybe Nigel Farage is the answer. It certainly isn't the Labour Party, and it certainly isn't Kier Starmer.
Yeah, I think Reform have a big challenge ahead, actually. They need to make sure they run those councils properly, because that will be, amongst other things, one of the key metrics to the general election in a few years. Matthew, does it matter that Kier Starmer doesn't really have personality or charisma? Because that was the barb levied at him at the start, but people were saying, well, we don't want characters anymore like Boris Johnson. We don't want the sort of, you know, the bumbling caricatures. We want a steady statesman. Does it matter that Starmer hasn't got much rizz? I guess that's the word, rizz.
Yeah, I think it does matter, and I think it plays into his unpopularity. But let me paint a slightly different picture for you, if I may. So these were midterm elections, and in Britain, they tend to be, or can be, protest elections. So with such an unpopular Prime Minister, as we keep being reminded that Starmer is, you might expect that this insurgent force in the shape of Nigel Farage, pretty much everyone in the country knows who he is, would be doing a hell of a lot better than 27% of the vote. That means that 73% of people, Ben, who bothered to turn out, I was one of them, I bothered to turn out, who voted in these local elections, decided not to vote for Nigel Farage or Reform. They have got a massive
Matthew, that's such an insane description. Even less decided not to vote for the Greens, Labour and the Tories. It's such a stupid...
You're calling me stupid.
What's the point? No, I'm saying well, with respect, it's a very stupid point saying, well, most people didn't vote for Reform. Well, even more people didn't vote for everybody else. What I'm trying
to explain to you is there's this narrative that has developed in the last couple of days that Reform have done fantastically well. And in one sense, yes, for a party with 8 or 9 MPs or whatever they've got at the moment, they have done well. But what we're talking about is the high stakes of a general election in 2 or 3 years' time, where Reform want to stamp their imprint on our country, on my country. And what I'm saying to you is they're going to have to do a very great deal better than 27%, because when you get to the next election, you're going to have tactical voting all over the place. If 73% of the population are not voting for you, and if Nigel Farage is seen as toxic as he is by so many millions of people in this country, they are going to do their damnedest to make sure he doesn't get into number 10. That's the picture I'm trying to paint for you.
Yeah, Matthew. Okay, I think they call
but what
that.
Don't you understand about that?
Point,
it's kind of easy. It's easy mathematics, right?
No, I get it, but the Reform's national equivalent vote share was 31%, and that was data being passed around by everybody: Sky News, GB News, everybody, the BBC. It was 31%.
27% is what I've been reading, and that's just not good enough.
Okay, well they're still ahead. Again, with respect, Matthew, I think online they call this cope. Tiffany?
Yeah, I'm just going to say that you have to remember what a new party Reform is. It's taking over where the Tories left off. The Tories are the oldest political party in the history of the world. They're twice as old, basically, as America. So for a brand new party to have this kind of power and this kind of name recognition and this kind of common sense making amongst voters and traction, I think it is foolish and short-sighted and basically, frankly, biased to say that they do not have the power behind them that they do. The midterms, as you like to refer to them, like your version of them, they are still a window into the future of the next general election, the same way they are here in the US. We're here dealing in the 2026 midterms. It's not looking great. And, it often is the opposite of whoever's in the White House. We know that. But we are doing everything we can to regain steam. What it does tell us is what's going to happen in 2028, no different than over there in the UK. And to discount Nigel Farage and the amount of damage that Labour and Starmer and Sadiq Khan and all of these politicians have done to the United Kingdom, to Britain, would be a fool's errand, because your people are going to be sick and tired of all the rapes and all the gang crimes and all the immigration, all the constant migrant boats coming over and taking over their country and getting moved into their villages and getting, now we have the pubs getting shut down everywhere. I mean, it's just thing after thing that your people that are coming to the voter booth in the next few years, they're going to want their country back.
Okay, look, I don't know what I've said that is remotely contentious. I've said that for a nascent party, of course, Reform have done well. I've also said that Kier Starmer is unpopular. It's perfectly obvious he's unpopular. Just look at the polling on that. I've not for a second said that Labour did well in these midterm elections, in these local elections. Of course, they didn't do well. They did very badly. What I am saying is that all sights are now on the next general election, and that is what will be focusing Labour minds. Farage has a very significant electoral hill, if not mountain, to climb. And let's just go back briefly to the question of whether Starmer survives or not. I've been saying for months that Starmer's not going to go anywhere after these May elections. It looks like I was right. I don't think he is going to go anywhere. Don't underestimate how resilient and how stubborn he is, right? The question then is, what happens in the build-up to the next general election? And I have also said for some time that if Starmer doesn't turn it around, as it is his responsibility to do, then within the year before the next general election, of course Labour are going to have to think about having another leader, because the stakes are incredibly high. I do not want Nigel Farage and his gang to be taking over my country, and I will do what I can to campaign against that and to convince people that it would be a terrible, terrible mistake, just as it was a terrible mistake when this country put Boris Johnson in number 10.
Better than illegal migrants taking over the country?
No, they're not, mate. You're in America. I live here. I live in London. They're not taking over the country. The boats need to be stopped.
I live in the UK as well. I might be here for a few months. I've got a house and kids and family in the UK. I know very well what goes on in the UK. 200,000 illegal migrants.
They haven't taken over the country, no.
That's insane. As someone that's been going to the United Kingdom for great periods of time since she was a child and who went to school there, I can tell you that is not true. The UK and London specifically is not the London that I grew up in. I'm not even feel comfortable walking down the streets at night like I did. That's not true.
Hilary, Tiffany, I'm just going to show you a clip of Kier Starmer talking about his future, then I'll get your reactions off the back. Let's have a look at this.
It's very important that we do reflect on what was a tough set of results. But I'm not going to walk away and plunge the country into chaos. I think the right thing to do is to rebuild and show the path forward. We did make a number of really important calls in the last couple of years about stabilising the economy, investing in our public services, not getting drawn into the war in Iran. We need to couple to that the arguments we're making about hope and the future, about young people, about place. And so I will be setting out those arguments, but more than anything, setting out with clarity the values and convictions that drive me.
Just Tiffany, just looking at that again, he just seems terrified and scared and maybe a bit tired as well. And I don't mean that as like an attack on him. I just think he looks like a bit of a troubled guy.
Yeah, and also, I mean, from my perspective, watching that, it's like, what values and convictions, Kier? Because I have never heard you say anything that you feel truly convicted about, or really tell me any values other than whatever environment you're in or whoever you're with. I just hear him repeating talking points that he knows will make him, welcome within wherever room he's in, and not necessarily anything that I know he actually believes. You can say quite the opposite for someone like Donald Trump or someone like Nigel Farage. They have powerful convictions, and they have this energy that seems to come from within. And, like you said, Starmer just seemed very, I don't even know the correct word.
Let me just come back on this, if I may. So Starmer is clearly a wooden politician. I've never thought he's been a fantastic politician, although he did unbelievably well to get rid of the Corbynites from the Labour Party, turn the party around, turn around a Boris Johnson 80-seat majority into a massive but shallow landslide for Labour. So he's done something right in that sense. He's not a fantastic Prime Minister, there's no doubt about it. But Labour, in my view, would be crazy to walk into reform and the Tories' trap. If they have think about it, Ben, if they have a leadership election now, Labour Party members will be deciding who is the next Prime Minister of this country. That has democratic problemacy written all over it, and Reform and the Tories and the Greens and Lib Dems will be screaming from the rooftops, we need a general election, we need a general election. The way our system works, or the way it's worked so far, is you have a general election, which we did just under 2 years ago. Not even 2 years ago, guys. Labour won. Starmer was the leader. He became Prime Minister. He's made mistakes. He's a wooden politician. I hope he turns it around, but he needs to be given that opportunity to turn it around. And if he doesn't, then as we build up to the next general election, have a leadership contest, but do not walk into the trap that Nigel Farage would be delighted to set for him.
Your country is losing itself, and more years are not going to help it. It's going to make it worse. Starmer and the Labour Party need to be removed from office as quickly as possible.
Actually, my final comment before I let you both go is I think Farage wants Starmer to stay. I think he wants him to stay. He's even
well, that's not what he said in the build-up to the local elections. He said, vote Reform, get Starmer out. So, I mean, let's believe him, shall we? Let's believe him what he said. Get Starmer out was his message for the local. He wanted Starmer to stay before the local elections so that he could run a campaign based on getting Starmer out.
Yeah. All right, Matthew, thank you very much. Appreciate you staying up with us tonight. And Tiffany Marie Brannan as well. Tiffany, I love your wallpaper as well. I don't know where you are, but I love it, just as a side note. Thank you, Tiffany. Let's get the thoughts of my panel, former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell, and political commentator Hilary Forwich. I think Farage has said in the last couple of days he wants him to stay on, Starmer.
Oh, I think he was being facetious, but he said he was the best campaign manager or something. He actually said that. It was a facetious comment. I can't remember the role that he said, but he literally said something about him playing a role because, of course, what is it? It's making it easy to beat him.
He said he was the greatest asset to reform, Matt.
Yeah. It was a position, though, he said, yeah.
Listen, elections are referendums on the incumbents in office. And right now, these elections were a referendum on Kier Starmer. Look, I go back to, it's not just candidates that are on ballots. It's the policy. And this is not rocket science. What the people of the UK want is safety, security. That's what the people of the United States want. It's what people in Belgium want. It's what people across the world want. And when you have the kind of crisis you have of anti-Semitism, when you have rising crime, and when you have an unsecure border and illegal migration issues in a country, that's going to be a political problem for the incumbent, and it's a real practical problem right now for the UK that the people of the UK should not be going through. Yeah. And I think the people of the UK recognize that. Now, look, it comes down to also, as an incumbent, having a political home. And I think right now, Kier Starmer is recognizing that he lacks a political home right now when his own people, his own political party rising up. And what they've been given right now, these individuals in his own party, is the political coverage they needed to step out a bit. Does that mean he's going to be out of office? Who knows? But the truth right now is he's facing political headwinds, and he's yet to get any momentum. That's always a major crisis for any politician.
You were former campaign manager to Marco Rubio for president 2016. If you were advising Kier Starmer now in government, what would you say to him?
Yeah, look, I was the chief of staff on Marco Rubio's campaign in 2016, and here's what I can tell you. Tell the people right now what you stand for and govern on conviction. You know, during that campaign in 2016, I would see what Donald Trump was able to do and really get in those big crowds. And we had a great candidate in then Senator Rubio. But Donald Trump won. President Trump won in 2016 because he's a change agent. And he was out there telling people not what they wanted to hear, but what they needed to hear. And that resonated. And you had voters in those primaries. I remember going to Iowa and New Hampshire. I'd be there. You'd be talking to voters. And they'd say, you know, I don't agree with every tweet that Donald Trump puts out. I don't agree with everything he says, but that's a change agent. I know what he stands for. It was crystal clear what he stood for. It was make America great again. That's what the people of the UK want to know. Can you make the UK great again? And if you're a leader and you look like somebody who's just chasing political polls, you can never win, but more importantly, you can't govern. And that's the big challenge for Kier Starmer right now. He cannot effectively govern. I think the people of the UK know that, and frankly, I think deep down he knows that.
Interesting. Very interesting. Let's get the thoughts of Benedict Spence and Benjamin Butterworth. Benedict, somebody on your say, I've lost their name, apologies, but they've said, and again, Matthew's not here to defend himself, but he says, Stadlen is in reform-winning denial. They're going to be your next government. No point keep denying it. It's going to happen. I don't quite agree with that. I think there's a long way to go, actually. But are there people, particularly off the back of the elections right now, are there people in denial still about the threat reform pose at the next election?
No, I think that the threat that reform poses has been made very clear to a lot of people. I think there was a lot of, I think you called it copium earlier, which is, this idea that perhaps reform had hit a bit of a ceiling and couldn't go any higher. I think that that's been proven to not be the case. But I also think that it's not in Nigel Farage's interest to have an election immediately or anytime soon, because actually, if you look at all the polling, you're trying to extrapolate what you can from it, he wouldn't win a majority right now. He'd be the largest single party, Reform would be the largest single party, but they wouldn't win a majority. What would that mean? Almost certainly a coalition with the Conservatives, which would temper a lot of what they want to do and would probably not do an awful lot for his popularity. Now, he would have to go into coalition if that opportunity was there, because the alternative would be to effectively surrender then to a coalition of left-leaning parties, including the Greens, because, of course, Labour wouldn't be able to form a government by themselves either. And that's simply not in the best interest of the country. So whilst we're all sort of sitting here, and I think Farage will be absolutely loving what's been going on, it's actually in his interest to draw this out for another 18 months or so. And that means maybe getting rid of Starmer and an Angela Rayner or somebody like that coming in. But right now, he wants Labour in power for just a little bit longer to really ram home to people that there needs to be some more fundamental change, and also for him to try and, where possible, outstrip Kemi Badenoch, who we have to remember is doing a half-decent job of resuscitating, at the very least, her own reputation, if not the Conservative party's.
Yeah, great point, Benedict. Somebody on your say, Pseudomass, has just said Kemi would partner. I assume you mean with Reform. I don't think Reform voters would want that, not because the Tories have done this or that over the past many years, but quite frankly, Benjamin, I think if that were the case, you had a Reform-Tory coalition, I think it would be a Reform government in name only. They just couldn't do what they wanted to do.
I mean, look, I don't like when politicians are sort of put on the spot before about whether they would do a coalition of different forms, because in a sense that is a decision that the voters are handing. If the voters give that spread of parties and of politicians, then you make it work from there. I think a Tory Reform coalition would be very likely if the numbers added up. I suspect a lot of Conservative MPs, secretly would quite like to go over, but they're too loyal to the party they've been in for decades. But I think Matthew Stadlen had a point, which is at this point in the cycle, with a very unpopular incumbent Prime Minister, actually, if this is the watermark of reform, which, as Benedict just pointed out, would not deliver a Reform majority government, well, then actually, things are really not as sealed as they expect. And we keep seeing examples from senior Reform politicians, like Nigel Farage's £5 million that he can't explain and try to keep secret, that is going to ebb away. And if you get more of those scandals, you're starting to see it in the focus groups, people will say, actually, Nigel Farage isn't the change from everyone else that we expected. He seems a bit dodgy.
He can explain it, and he didn't need to try and keep it secret because it wasn't necessary. It wasn't part of the rules to declare it. It was 5 million quid from a crypto guy, Harborn, who lives in Thailand, and it was for his personal security.
You can't be serious, Ben, given how much airtime and attention was given to Kier Starmer getting a pair of glasses for a few £100s from a Labour peer, that the idea of £5 million...
Farage wasn't PM, he wasn't even an MP.
£5 million in the back pocket, which he
even an
kept
MP, Benjamin.
secret, but he was extremely influential, and in that period he changed his mind and decided to run for election.
He didn't keep it secret because he didn't need to declare it.
He did keep it secret. He didn't tell anybody.
No, he didn't, because he didn't need to declare it.
Did he tell anybody?
He didn't need to tell anybody.
Did he tell anybody?
What would you tell? Right, get up your Barclays app on your phone and show us all your bank statements, please. I want to know all about your finances. That is the circumstance. He wasn't an MP. He had no responsibility to declare anything. Why would he go to the world and say, "Oh, I've had 5 million quid from an associate to protect me and my family"? Let me tell you something. I've known Nigel for a long time, 16, 17 years. I remember when he was doing local town hall speeches down in Hove as part of UKIP before the 2013-14 European elections. Even at that point, he'd go for a meal in a pub with his family and younger kids at the time, and he'd have far-left lunatics raiding the pub, ruining his dinner and forcing them to flee for their safety, even way back then. So God knows what goes on now with Farage. You've seen what happens in the UK. We've had multiple MPs murdered. You've had Farage himself attacked. And in the United States, 3 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. I'm not surprised the guy needs 5 million quid for his own security, especially after the UK government refused to allow him his own security paid for by the taxpayer. They pulled it. So I'm not surprised, and I don't blame him.
You're taking people for fools by thinking they will fall for that argument. I don't doubt that he needs security and faces a serious threat, as do far too many people in public life and in politics. But the idea that he simply forgot to tell anybody that a man that is a major political donor that doesn't even live in Britain put £5 million in the 12 months before he came into Parliament. These are the kind of scandals that people expect better from. It is utterly dodgy, it stinks of corruption, and if that is what's going to happen in the coming years, then Nigel Farage will never be Prime Minister.
You're wrong. You're talking nonsense. He wasn't even an MP. Starmer was an MP during the Lord Ali stuff. Benedict, very quickly, last word on this, then we've got to move on.
Yeah, I don't think that this is going to land, because if nothing else, and to take everything that you've just said about what this money was for, the key thing here is that Nigel Farage represents something to an awful lot of people which is aspirational. Actually, what he is not promising is to come in and raise your taxes and lower your standard of living. The very his very essence is about trying to do things, is about trying to be more proactive. And I think an awful lot of people who are already voting for him already have that aspect to him priced in. They know that he's got money. They know that that's what he's about. They know that he worked in the city or as a metal trader once back in the day. They don't mind. It's what he promises them that they're voting for, as opposed to what Kier Starmer promised them, which he has not delivered on, and on top of that has been proven to be a hypocrite on.
OK, great stuff. With respect to the comment made regarding the 5 million to Farage, before he stood for election, the Reform UK leader has said in a statement, "This money was given to me so that I would be safe and secure for the rest of my life." And a Reform UK spokesman has said this was a personal, unconditional gift that was given before he was elected. As I said, we are confident everything's been declared in accordance with the rules. gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts. Yeah, lots of talk about that 5 million. Blah, blah, blah. We'll get onto that shortly. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
Do you think that visibly Jewish people are safe on the streets of London?
Well, some of Britain's biggest institutions have written an open letter to the Jewish community vowing to fight anti-Semitism. But are words enough? Do they do it anymore? Do we just need action instead? Back in a second.
Last October, at Heaton Park, a deadly terrorist attack shocked the nation. Similarly, last week's terrorist attack in Golders Green was utterly appalling. But they were not isolated incidents.
Kier Starmer speaking only a few weeks ago about the rise of anti-Semitic attacks in Britain, and breaking tonight, businesses, faith groups, charities, sporting bodies and media organisations have all published an open letter of support to the British community, committing themselves and their organisations to fight anti-Semitism. It was addressed to British Jewish community leaders. The letter makes a commitment that, quote, "This country belongs to you as much as any of us. You are British, as all of us, who can call this country home, and we'll do everything we can to protect you and your community from the extremists who threaten you." It went on, "This is not a problem for Jewish people to have to respond to. This is a problem for us all to fix." Well, with me now is the chairman of the Young Jewish Assembly, Michael Rowe. Michael, just tell us about this letter. Who signed it? What was the sort of aim? And has it landed? Has it sort of reassured people like you and your loved ones and friends in the community?
Good morning. Good to see you this morning. This letter has been signed by a variety of different organisations, from faith groups, Christian and Muslim faith groups and others, as well as many people in groups in civil society. And we in the Jewish community are grateful to them for signing this, for their unequivocal message that anti-Semitism will not be tolerated, that they will do all they can to fight it. But I think there needs to be a caution and a proviso with this letter, that whilst we're grateful to them, it's generally not these people who are perpetrating the attacks we've seen against Jewish communities in the UK. Just like you heard from that clip from the Prime Minister, there's been multiple arson attacks. There's been, of course, the awful stabbing in Golders Green, the Heaton Park synagogue attacks. These things were not perpetrated by the individuals or by the groups who have signed the letter. Most of them can be directly attributed to the Iranian regime, to the IRGC. And so whilst we are looking to say thank you to them, and we appreciate their warm words, we need to say this is not enough. The action needs to take place to ensure that the Iranian actors on the streets of Britain are completely pushed down. And the way to do that is to get off on the IRGC, to prescribe the IRGC and the Muslim Brotherhood, and start taking these threats really seriously from a governmental level.
Kier Starmer has said he will fast-track the prescription of the IRGC. However, I mean, 7 years after the US did it, months and months after the EU did it and everybody else, but he has promised to fast-track it. And again, that is despite promising, when they were in opposition, Labour, to prescribe the IRGC as soon as they got to power. Anyway, do you trust him to do that fairly swiftly?
Well, it's obviously taken far too long for this to happen. There's good mood music coming from the Prime Minister at the moment in terms of, we know the King's speech is coming up, and there's some suggestion that specific legislation will be brought forwards to prescribe the IRGC. So I hope that happens, and I hope that happens as soon as possible. But these type of measures are the only thing which can really stop the attacks from taking place. It has to be a whole shift in society in the way we're looking at anti-Semitism, treating it like all forms of racism. It's not just the prescription of the IRGC, it's also the Muslim Brotherhood. It's also the hate preachers in mosques across the country. It's also the extremism we see on university campuses and the indoctrination of students. So it's a raft of different measures which need to take place. And I think the letter today, just to refer back to it, is an important starting point. Once society and key groups and religious leaders in society start accepting that there's a problem, that's obviously an important step. But I would suggest that this is not something which should be seen as a solution to the problem. It's along the process of dealing with it, but there's a lot more that needs to be done, and it's time for the government to step up and not just leave it to religious leaders and civic leaders to do their work for them.
Michael, very quickly, some people, especially, well, mostly those on the left of the argument, say, and I don't agree with this, but this is their argument, they say, well, what do you expect to happen with anti-Semitism when you see what Israel is doing in the Middle East? What's your response to that?
Well, it's quite clear that anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are the same thing. If you do not believe that the Jewish state, the only Jewish state in the world, should exist, then you clearly have a problem with Jews. Now, no one is at all suggesting that you have to agree with everything or anything the Israeli government is doing. Just like, a British national doesn't have to agree with anything the British government is doing. But there's a fundamental right for the Jewish state to exist, just like there is for states across the world to exist. And I think we have to start accepting and taking seriously the point that when people are denying the right of the Jewish state to exist. They are being anti-Semitic. They are being openly racist against Jews. Their action must be called out, and we can't be scared to call that out, because it's something that really threatens the safety of Jews, as we've seen on the streets of Britain. We've allowed this behaviour and this language to encroach the whole time, and it's led to the unfortunate events we've seen recently, which I hope we see the end of now.
Michael Rowe, thank you so much. Appreciate you being with us on the Late Show Live. Chairman of the Young Jewish Assembly, Michael Rowe, thank you. Hillary is here, Matt's here. Hillary, Zach Polansky, the Green Party leader, said a few days ago on some channel that no nation had a right to exist.
That's right. I mean, absolutely ghastly.
Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
What did he mean by that?
Well, what does he mean by that? I mean, what Great Britain has no right to exist, France has no right to exist, the United States, that was a silly thing to say. And ever since the Balfour Declaration, of course, the Middle East has been carved up and Israel has a right to exist. What I would say is also, Sir Kier Starmer, we saw the photograph earlier, or the clip earlier, with him wearing that yarmulke with Jewish leaders. It's one thing to have a great photo op like that with a yarmulke, and it's another thing to actually put policies in place that actually make the Jewish community safe. And I think this is pervasive throughout society, because you're seeing it on university campuses and you're seeing it everywhere. And I think it's a great pity that it's come to this point where he's let this happen, because there hasn't been the policies in place years ago. It's too late. And that's another reason, to me, one of the reasons that he performed so poorly and Labour performed so poorly in the elections was it's one thing after another. It was just the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of what happened in Golders Green, but it's been there for years.
OK. Just going back to that comment from Polansky, Matt, I want to get your thoughts on this. I posted this clip from Zach Polansky saying, well, no, he was asked by Robert Peston, I think. He said, does Israel have a right to exist? And Polansky replied, well, no nation has a right to exist. I posted that clip and I was attacked by Owen Jones. You probably won't know who he is. He's just far left lunatic. He said, you are a painfully stupid person, talking to me. He's not referring to whether a country physically exists. He's referring to whether its state exists or not. This legal right does not exist. Otherwise, it would have been illegal for, say, Czechoslovakia to cease to exist.
That's ludicrous.
Countries have a right to exist. The United States has a right to exist. The UK has a right to exist.
But he's talking about the state.
Israel has a right to exist. You know, look, they can weigh in all they want and talk about, you know, this issue. The bigger issue you have right now is growing anti-Semitism around the world. We've seen it in the UK. You've seen it here in the United States. Right here in Washington, D.C., we saw people killed because of their faith. The bottom line here is what we're seeing is this rise in anti-Semitism, and we're seeing a leader in the UK under Kier Starmer. We're seeing leaders here in the United States, I wouldn't even call them that, but Democrat politicians who refuse to stand on the side of Israel against Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. Mark my words, there is nobody who will run the Democrat primary in 2028 for president who will truly be able to publicly stand on the side of Israel and stand up for Israel. This is a real problem taking place not just in the UK and with Kier Starmer. This is a problem in the United States with the Democrat Party. They've allowed this to happen. And the bottom line here is if you don't stand up and call out this horrific activity against the Jewish people, if you don't stand up and say, you know what, we're going to stand on the side of Israel against a terrorist organization, and let's not forget that Hamas attacked Israel, that's how you get to situations like this, in my view.
Let me ask you another question, which comes from the argument of those on the left. Why would anybody have to care about Israel or what goes on in Israel? Why is America and Israel, why are they, I mean, they've got a better special relationship than, I argue, the US, UK. Why is that? Why
Listen,
do you care about Israel?
What happens in Israel, in the Middle East, impacts everybody around the world. And right now what President Trump has been trying to do is not just related to Israel. Yes, that's important, particularly as it relates to what occurred with the war between Israel and Hamas, but also really trying to reset the global stage. We saw President Trump do that with a visit to Saudi Arabia. What he's doing with Iran right now is trying to reset the global stage, make it so that we can once and for all have peace in the Middle East. Throughout my lifetime, your lifetime, Ben, we've heard politicians time and time again talk about how impossible it will be to ever have peace in the Middle East. Right now, President Trump is delivering peace in the Middle East. Part of that is making sure that Israel is not being attacked by Hamas. Part of that is ensuring that Iran's regime is decimated, which President Trump has been doing a fantastic job doing, and finally getting to a place where hopefully we can have a great partnership between the United States and Middle East countries. Well, that's what this is really about.
From his last administration, if we hadn't had Biden, the Abraham Accords, if they had just continued, it would have been a lovely, peaceful place.
Right, let's just remind ourselves what Kier Starmer said on attacks on Jewish communities and how they are attacks on all of us. Let's play the clip.
This has been a series of attacks on our Jewish community, particularly in recent weeks. And there is a very deep sense of anxiety, of concern about security, about safety, about identity, frankly. I went to Kenton Synagogue last week and heard firsthand from some in the synagogue who, of course, have been subject to an attack there. So we have to understand that wider impact and that visceral feeling that many in our Jewish community have. And we have to be really clear that an attack on our Jewish community is an attack on all of us.
OK, let's speak to Benedict Spence and Benjamin Butterworth on this now. Benjamin, your take. I know you're a staunch defender of Jews across England. Would you count yourself as a Zionist, Benjamin, as well?
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm an anti-racist, and so Zionism is an anti-racist movement that says the Jewish people have a right to a state and a right to their own safe space. I think, you know, so Kier Starmer, I don't doubt that he does have a real understanding of how Jewish people feel, because, of course, his wife and his 2 children are Jewish. They go to synagogue, they're practicing. You know, much of his family is Jewish, and, in fact, some of them are Israeli. So, you know, he has a first-hand insight into what's going on. But what has happened is beyond just what government can tolerate. There is, you know, anti-Semitism is a light sleeper, and it has come back in such a form that it is socially acceptable as a form of racism. You know, I've been incredibly depressed by seeing some of the Green Party candidates that got elected in recent days or that were put forward for public office who have made all sorts of horrendous, racist, anti-Jewish comments, and yet liberal people, left-wing people like me, some of them look the other way because they seem to think that Jews don't count and that somehow they can be held responsible for the decisions of a government in another part of the world. But there's also, secondly, this narrative that said that, well, you know, of course, Jewish people shouldn't be held responsible for the terrible things that Netanyahu has done in their view. But even if they support the right of Israel to defend itself, as it has, a person in Britain shouldn't be facing attacks and intimidation and social ostracisation because they support the Jewish state protecting itself. And I think, as Tony Blair wrote in the Free Press, a website recently, he said that the reason that we have to be outspoken in defence of our Jewish community is because it's not just about the Jewish people, it's about the defence of truth and decency and liberal Western values. And that is why it matters what happens in Israel, what happens to Jewish people, because it represents something far more fundamental about our society.
Yeah, and also we just forget how few, only 300,000 Jews. Is it 300,000 in the UK?
I think it's
just
slightly
a tiny minority of people. Yeah, being blamed for whatever Netanyahu's doing or not doing in the Middle East. Benedict, your take. What did you make, Benedict, of Zach Polanski the other day saying? What did he say? That no country has a right to exist. No nation.
Well, I'm going to prove the controversial person here because I agree with him. No country does have the right to exist. Not the United States, not the United Kingdom, not Israel. And crucially, therefore, not Palestine either. And that's the thing that I think everybody forgets when they talk about Israel not having the right to exist. You can sit there and go, yeah, well, if they don't, that means their neighbours don't either. The crucial thing about the existence of states is they are formed of people and the aggregation of their power. States have the power to exist, or they do not have the power to exist. And the crucial difference between Israel and the Palestinians is that when the 2 countries were established, you know, an Arab state and a Jewish state, one attacked the other and one repelled the other. And when that one repelled the other, it took its territory because it had the power to do so. That is how every modern state has been formed. That's how every state in history has been formed. And the Palestinians are the only people on earth who are told repeatedly, again and again, if you just keep doing the same thing over and over, eventually you'll get what you want. You know, the Germans learned this the hard way over the course of the last century. If you keep invading your bigger, stronger neighbours, you might run them close, but sooner or later they'll beat you and they'll take some of your land. Intelligent life is meant to learn from its mistakes, but that's a crucial thing that needs to be borne in mind here. Israel does not have the right to exist. It has the power to exist, and allowing it to maintain that strength is why it is so important, because otherwise we know what its neighbours would do to it. On the subject of anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom, and I think it's crucial that you touched upon there how few Jewish people actually live in the UK, UK because it's actually about 250,000 who live in the United Kingdom, Jewish people. Well, we've just crossed over the 200,000 threshold of people entering this country illegally. To give you some idea of the sort of the dynamics that are at play here, the key driver of anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom, I think, needs to be borne in mind. It is not, in fact, being driven fundamentally by middle-class half-wits who have a particular view on the Israel-Palestine conflict. A lot of this is coming from people who have come from other parts of the world where they have less enlightened views on this subject than us. In particular, it must be said, a lot of them come from countries including Pakistan and Bangladesh, where people are preached to in the masjids, in the mosques, every week. A form of Islam that is not the same as it is in the Middle East or in North Africa, and has even more, frankly, barbaric attitudes towards Jews than any of us, frankly, recognise. That's something that needs to be borne in mind. In the United Kingdom, we have done nothing to assimilate these people on this particular issue. We have not gone around those communities and said, now you stop that, you cut that out and you leave that at the door, or you have no place in this country. We have allowed it to fester, and that is why now you see across parts of the country with very large Pakistani and Bangladeshi communities, people standing at local elections on the subject of Palestine.
Wow, Benedict, I hadn't thought of that comparison before. 200,000 small boat migrants coming since, 2018, 19. I would argue, I don't know the figure, I would argue probably 90% Muslim, or Muslim origin, and only, as you say, 250,000, 300,000 Jews. I mean, they're almost outnumbered just on that front from small boat migrants. People who, again, I would argue...
This year.
Yeah,
just this year.
Well, not 200k this year, 200k since 2018, I think. It's 70k since Kier Starmer took power. Wow, what a comparison, something I'd not thought of. Thank you both, Benedict, Benjamin. Quite sobering, isn't it, to think of that now?
Good point brought up on how illegal migration is really the issue here, right? I mean, you have people who are coming to these countries who are not assimilating into the countries, and I think it's a big part of what we're seeing in terms of this rise.
Well, and it's not just, and it's they're not assimilating, but also the imams, they said, we're going to conquer the West 3 ways. 1 is you're taking advantage of your liberal laws, 2 is through migration, and 3 is through the womb.
Yep.
Right, gbnews.com/your say. Still ahead on the show tonight.
And I can confirm that HMS Dragon has arrived in the Eastern Mediterranean.
HMS Dragon is on the move once again, redeployed to the Middle East as tensions with Iran edge closer to boiling point, but with the Strait of Hormuz hanging by a thread. The big question is this: will Britain's warship even arrive before the next major escalation? I wonder. Also tonight...
What Britain needs is to change course and to forge a new political economy. What Britain needs is reform.
Not sure what you're going to make of this. One of the rising stars of Reform UK has warned against her own party's rhetoric around migration, and it's certainly raising a few eyebrows. It did me when I read it. We'll discuss that very shortly. Don't go anywhere.
Look, Starmer needs to go. This was a referendum on Kier Starmer, and the British public have voted overwhelmingly that they have no confidence in this man.
Well, buckle up, because the fallout from the local elections isn't going away, and neither is the Prime Minister by the looks of it seems, because he vows to fight on in Downing Street for another decade. He said he's not going anywhere. He wants a decade in number 10. That's just what you wanted, isn't it? At home, viewers and listeners, are you celebrating that? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. We'll discuss that shortly. But first tonight, a GB News alert. Talking of the Prime Minister, Sir Kier Starmer has just deployed HMS Dragon to the Middle East as tensions continue over Iran and the fragile US-backed ceasefire. The Royal Navy destroyer is being pre-positioned ahead of a potential multinational mission to protect commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Ministers say the move is defensive and aimed at securing global trade routes, with Britain and France expected to lead any coalition force. With me now is foreign correspondent Sarah Firth, a friend of the show. Sarah, great to see you. Well, HMS Dragon, I mean, it took weeks to get to Crete from Pompey for starters, then it had to go back, and now seemingly on the move again. What's the latest, Sarah?
Yes, so you've got the HMS Dragon deployed. That was announced some time ago. But look, if you take it back a little bit, Ben, for viewers at home who haven't been following the sort of back and forth of words between Britain and America over the last couple of weeks when it comes to Britain's potential involvement in America's conflict in Iran. Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, a little while ago, he mocked what he called big bad Royal Navy when he was trying to make the argument that, look, it was time for US allies to step up and do some more heavy lifting when it came to securing the Strait of Hormuz. Now, you made that important point, Ben, that the Ministry of Defence in the UK, they have described this as strictly defensive and independent a mission. But she is, let's tell you a bit more about her now she's on her way. She's a Type 45 destroyer. She is one of the Royal Navy's most advanced air defense vessels. In fact, arguably, I think possibly one of the most advanced warships in the world. I'd like military analysts at home can weigh in on that, Ben. But needless to say, she is a ship that is suitable for this job. And what that job is, because remember Starmer, along with Francis Macron, they're saying this is a sort of independent mission, but to provide support and maritime security to those ships that are going to be trying to pass the blockade. And that is the ship that you would want if you were on board one of those ships trying to navigate that, what is now the most sensitive checkpoint in the world, that waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, and navigate that blockade. And you had a swarm of Iranian drones coming at you because, remember, this is modern warfare now. It's not old-fashioned Navy battleships facing off against one another. It's small, light, fast aerial attacks from the air. She is equipped, the HMS Dragon, with Sea Viper air defense system. It's able to target multiple fast-moving aerial assaults, so perfect for sort of drone swarm attacks. So, yeah, once again, look, I think if you're a sailor or a merchant on board one of those vessels trying to navigate those waters, you'd want this kind of bodyguard sort of ship in your corner. Perhaps even Pete Hegseth would agree with that.
Yeah. Also, just very quickly, does this mean now that the UK, if and when Dragon gets to the Strait of Hormuz, are we involved in this war? Because Kier Starmer, even yesterday, taking victory laps, saying, well, one thing I have got right is not getting involved in the Iran war. So is this yet another U-turn? Are we involved?
It is the biggest question being asked right now, Ben, because, of course, the MOD is saying that this is purely defensive. But look, you have in the HMS Dragon a very, very capable destroyer from the US Navy, one of the most sophisticated air defense ships. And so if she is there to monitor, to defend those craft in support of that, trying to get the blockade opened, and one of the ships that she's defending comes under attack, then she will be involved in that kinetic war. So, you know, trying that tightrope that Kier Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, is trying to walk right now between mission creep, you know, appeasing America, if you like, and ensuring critically that the Strait of Hormuz gets open. It's a difficult line to walk, and we'll see if he manages to do it in the coming days.
Yeah, lots on his plate, literally spinning plates. Sarah, thank you so much. Appreciate you as always. You're great. Sarah Firth, foreign correspondent, friend of the Late Show Live. Thank you. We'll speak soon. Let me just play you this quick clip, then I'll get your reaction panel. This is Pete Hegseth talking about our big bad Royal Navy just a few weeks ago. Take a look.
There are countries around the world who ought to be prepared to step up on this critical waterway as well. It's not just the United States Navy. Last time I checked, there was supposed to be a big bad Royal Navy.
Hillary, the big bad Royal Navy is on the way to the Strait of Hormuz.
No, you know what? It's just so sad. I wonder what Admiral Mandelson would have thought about this. I mean, to be so humiliated on the global stage, I think, is so pitiful. I suppose it's always better late than never to be finally going. And actually, maybe if tensions do escalate and we manage to do something that's worthwhile, hopefully we can redeem ourselves. But I think it's very sad, pitiful, and that Pete Hegseth felt quite comfortable saying that. And of course, President Trump has said something quite similar as well.
Our Royal Marines, though, Matt, they had a boxing match, a tournament against the US Navy here in Annapolis, is it Maryland, a few weeks ago. The Brits, the Marines, won 11 out of 12 bouts. So there's your big bad Royal Navy, Matt.
Yeah, listen, well, look, I do think this is better late than never in terms of this destroyer being sent over. But look, this is one of 6 destroyers that the UK has. Roughly 3 of the destroyers of those 6 are, able to operate at full at sea. But with this particular destroyer, it does not have the capability to launch missiles that will hit the land. So there are limitations to what this destroyer can do. Better than late than never. But look, with all due respect to the Prime Minister, he's fence sitting. Here he is sending a destroyer over, but then saying, well, we're not getting involved in the war, and that's what I got right. Well, it's what he got wrong. UK, specifically the Prime Minister, should have gotten more involved in this conflict. What's happening in Iran right now, particularly with the Strait of Hormuz, directly impacts the UK. It impacts Europe. Yes. We saw that when Iran launched missiles towards Diego Garcia. The bottom line here is the UK, under Prime Minister Starmer, made a huge mistake not getting more involved sooner.
Benjamin, Kier Starmer says it was a good thing. He didn't make a mistake. It's great. That was one of his wins yesterday.
I mean, I think the goal of Trump trying to take out the Ayatollah and the regime was a very good goal. But if you were the British Prime Minister looking at Donald Trump's plans, well, it's been pretty evident that there weren't sufficient plans and that there wasn't an exit route. And so I think it's actually quite understandable that not just Britain, but a lot of other countries took a sober look at things and said, well, you don't appear to have an off-ramp, you don't appear to have a strategy for winning this, and it's going to cost an absolute fortune, as it is to US taxpayers. And so I think most people in Britain probably side with Kier Starmer on this one.
Yeah, OK. Benedict, briefly.
Whilst everybody would love it for the United Kingdom to be in a position to get involved in a conflict anywhere around the world, the reality is right now the UK can't get involved in a war, certainly not the war with Iran. It doesn't have the capacity. So actually, Kier Starmer made the right decision in not getting more involved because he doesn't have the ships, he doesn't have the troops. And this doesn't just rest on him. This is something that goes back 10, 15 years. The Ministry of Defence is a burning pit of money that they just throw in and they waste. And the whole thing has to have been reassessed. And this is another failure of his not having addressed it up to now. But the key thing here is why the United Kingdom also can't be seen to be throwing things good money after bad is that the United States is right now trying to pull back from the idea of itself defending Europe. Who else is going to defend Europe, therefore, if not the United Kingdom? We need to be allocating our resources to the defence of Eastern Europe, its borders, not to the Middle East.
OK. Thank you, Benedict. Appreciate it. Tammy said, as a British citizen, I feel embarrassed and degraded by the decay of the Navy. Once ruled the waves, indeed. More coming up in the next hour on The Late Show Live, including this.
How do we lose our moral compass? We're simply enforcing the laws that Congress passed.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a cooler day ahead for many. We will see some showers across the south to start, otherwise lots of dry weather for the second half of the weekend and some sunny spells. Now it is going to be quite a cold start this morning across Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern parts of England, a patchy frost in places, otherwise largely dry and bright. Some showers pushing into the far southeast and this could nudge slightly northwards at times, maybe bringing in some rain across London, and it will gradually turn more and more unsettled from the north in Scotland, some of this rain turning a little heavy at times. Otherwise dry and bright, lots of sunny spells, but it is going to be a cooler day ahead, particularly if you compare it to yesterday afternoon, so temperatures widely in the low to mid-teens. Now some rain to finish off the day across Scotland. This will continue to push its way southwards through the course of the evening, a little heavy at times. Actually across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, it will be dry, but we could see a bit more cloud across the skies to finish off the day. And it's a fairly similar picture elsewhere across England and Wales, and we could see some rain just linger across the far southeast to finish off the day too. But actually across central and southern areas, parts of Wales, plenty of clear skies through the overnight period, so a colder night to come with a patchy frost. We do have some clouds, some spells of rain sinking southwards, so temperatures not dropping quite as low here. But as it clears Scotland, once again another cold night to come with clear skies and a patchy frost. Temperatures not dropping as low as perhaps they did last night, but most towns and cities in the mid-single figures. So nevertheless, it is going to be a chilly start for many. And a little unsettled at times, some clouds, some showers sinking their way southwards. But actually once this clears, lots of dry weather, some sunshine to follow. And across the south, it will hold on on to some dry weather for a time before eventually showers pushing through here. Still feeling fairly cool, temperatures widely in the mid to low teens, but still holding on to some slightly warmer temperatures across the south, highs reaching 17 degrees.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, live from Washington DC. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Tonight, a Prime Minister under pressure to quit. Sir Kier Starmer told to resign after the election bloodbath as Labour MPs openly plot and scheme to remove him. Now, a former minister is threatening a direct leadership challenge.
Leadership hopefuls who come forward tomorrow, then Monday morning I will put my name forward to stand for the leader of the Labour Party.
But will this be enough? Sir Kier Starmer brings back former Prime Minister Gordon Brown. Yes, the man who sold Britain's gold at rock-bottom prices and branded a voter concerned about migration a bigot. Is this the person that can save Starmer's premiership?
Everything. She's just a sort of bigoted woman.
Ice, ice, baby. The US Secretary of Homeland Security demands funding is issued for the next 3 years as he warns the World Cup, because of ICE funding, could be at risk. Elsewhere, grim story, airport tragedy, horror audio from a air traffic control radio guy has captured the hellish scenes after a person was hit by a plane and killed on a major airport runway here in America. A chilling story. I'm Ben Leo and this is The Late Show Live. There we go, got there in the end. Radio guy, that will do. Welcome to the Late Show Live. Joining me in Washington is my panel, former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell, and political commentator Hilary Fordwich. And in London, political guys, Benedict Spence and Benjamin Butterworth. Hello, you two. Thank you for your company. Right, a GB News alert this hour. Reform UK's London mayoral candidate, Layla Cunningham, you might be familiar with her, has warned Nigel Farage that the party's messaging on immigration may have cost its support in the capital. This is an extraordinary story, and I think you'll be very keen to listen to this. In an interview with The Independent, Layla Cunningham has said that talks of mass deportations allowed Labour and the Greens to paint reform as racist or divisive during the local election campaign. Despite major gains elsewhere all across Britain, Reform only took control of one of its 6 target councils in London, Havering. Cunningham insisted Reform's policies are focused on illegal migration, but admitted the language used around deportations may have created negative connotations with voters. So, big question, is this the moment that we see Reform UK distancing itself from this type of rhetoric?
On our first day in office, we declared a national emergency at our southern border. After years of politicians using our military to defend foreign borders while leaving our country defenseless and helpless, we deployed a group of people, active duty troops, to defend our border and repel the invasion of our country. This was an invasion.
Matt Terrell, Hilary Fordwich, I find this extraordinary, actually, that Layla Cunningham, who is the mayoral candidate for London, would say, actually, guys, maybe think about not using the term mass deportations because it's racist. Well, I think you need to double down.
Well, you know what it comes back to? Remember you raised last night Winston Churchill's quote, the problem with democracy, it's not a good form of government, it's just better than anything else ever tried. It's a numbers game. Of course, look who's voting in London. And so what she's talking about is she's talking about the electoral base, and she's talking about her concerns for them, that if they start thinking, you know how many people are living in London and who's living in London, and look at who the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. I think it comes down to what she's looking at is who's voting and who's voting for what, and she's afraid that this is going to actually hurt them overall.
I get that, but surely it is the case that in London, these people are never voting Reform anyway. So why are you scared about using the term mass deportations when you're never going to win them over?
Yeah, I think it's seeping into others, and you're never talking to your base. In any electoral race, and obviously Matt, I think, would know more about this than me, but whenever you're looking at an electoral base, you're not looking at, when you're looking to win, you're not looking at your base, you're looking at the independents, you're looking at the people you're trying to win over to your side. Anybody that's going to be voting Reform anyway, it wouldn't really affect them, but you're looking at all those people that are on the edge, those independent voters, those people that you're trying to sway over.
Yeah, building on Hillary's great points just there, you're not going to win over many of these voters in London to vote for Reform, no matter what you say. That's the case here in the United States politics as well. But here's what I think voters want. They want candidates and politicians who will actually say and call things out for what they are. That's why candidate Trump became President Trump not once but twice. He told the American people exactly what things were. He uses terms like illegal immigration. We talk about mass deportation. We're going to start calling things for what they are in the United States. That's what President Trump has been doing. And I think that's what the people of the UK want as well. And beyond that, it's not just talk, it's action. What did President Trump do? Starting day one of his presidency, secure the border, start delivering on what he campaigned on. The problem that Kier Starmer has is that he's not delivering for the people of the UK. Talk is cheap, actions speak louder than words.
And people want to know that you've got a true North Star. I think what they like about Nigel Farage is he does have a true North Star, and you have to have sound bites that are going to win. I would say President Eisenhower was elected in America because people wore a button that said, I like Ike. Bill Clinton won on It's the Economy Stupid, and President Trump won on Build the Wall, Make America Great Again. They have to have sound bites that are absolutely going to work. Something, I think Britain is broken is something negative. It's true, and it resonates, and it's good, but you need something positive, and it can't just be make Britain great again. There's got to be something positive, the positive side of getting rid of all the illegals.
Yeah, it used to be it's the economy stupid. I'd argue now it's migration stupid. Maybe something along those lines. Well, look, Benedict Spence, Benjamin Butterworth. I think Layla Cunningham here is saying that mass deportations, as most people understand it, refers to illegal migrants. But I think her point is there is a risk that the term phrase into the likes of legal migrants, where some people and parties want British citizens even who are maybe sons or daughters of migrants to be deported as well, or maybe those who can't speak English properly or aren't working or on the welfare state. Do reform need to be careful talking about mass deportations, Benedict?
I suppose it depends what they want. Do they want to win the capital or do they want to win the country? And it's possible to do the latter without doing the former. The thing is, actually, with winning London, it's not as difficult. Well, I say not as difficult, it's not impossible. And that's not simply because Boris Johnson was able to do it on a number of occasions. I think somebody who was even further to the right of Boris Johnson could also win the capital for the simple fact, for the simple reason that actually a lot of people who are immigrants or of immigrant backgrounds actually tend to be quite right-wing, especially when you take into account the sort of countries that they tend to come from, be it the Caribbean, be it from West Africa, or indeed be it from the Middle East. Those sorts of people tend to be much more socially conservative than I think a lot of people in the UK give them credit for. Now, on certain issues, there's a lot of potential for a right-wing party to do very well in London. But on that particular topic, of course, remigration, mass deportation, whatever it might be, that's going to be a touchy subject. But then the question is, should that be something that concerns reform? Should it really be the case that a nation's capital city could be out of its grasp because it's not actually made up of people who are, feel the same way as everybody else in the rest of the country? And I think that if Reform are thinking about taking power, taking government, they will understand, look, you don't need to win London to win power in Westminster. You don't need to have the Mayor of London in your back pocket to have a great deal of success. So I think the question here is this just what's in Layla Cunningham's best interest as somebody who wants to become Mayor of London, or is it in Reform's? And I suspect Farage will be thinking, I don't necessarily need the capital.
No, I think you're quite right. I think this is in Layla Cunningham's best interest. She has said, Benjamin, quote, "When we talk about mass deportation, it's illegal migrants, but perhaps we have to be more clear about it because mass deportation does have some connotations, doesn't it? I think the opposition parties, Labour and the Greens, have done very well in not arguing our substantive policy, but just labelling us as racist or divisive. That has landed, sadly." I wonder how appreciative Nigel Farage would be of this intervention as well.
Well, look, her goal is to be elected by Londoners, and so it makes sense that she is reflecting what Londoners tell her. Most people in this city are not white British born, either they're not white or they're not British born, and it is an outward-looking modern liberal city with lots of people who come from other parts of the world, either immediately or in their family history. And so, those people are feeling threatened, they're feeling abuse because of some of the language around mass deportations and some of the commentators on the harder right. And she's right to reflect that. It's her own experience. I think she's a Muslim woman with heritage from somewhere else in the world herself. Now, Benedict is correct when he says that many of those people aren't necessarily left-wing, but they feel alienated by this kind of language. And so I think she's right to raise that. And I think that, actually, it's long been strange that right-wing parties don't win over, for example, black Christians, because they are far more socially conservative than your typical white British person, I suspect, like any three of us. And so, if they were to get rid of the sort of pseudo-racist language, I think that would bring people over. The other thing I'd say is that I think Reform announced a policy of if you weren't born here and you stopped working, then they would kick you out, which sounds fine on the face of it, except that this could be someone who's 65 and been here for 50 years. And I heard several people that were inclined to vote for Reform, that have that sort of politics, but they weren't born here, and they said, actually, that's really unfair, the idea that if my dad got cancer, he could be kicked out of a country he's paid taxes in for 40 years. And so I think they have to be careful of just how many people they alienate.
Yeah, lots of comments on this. Let me just read you some. Sean said, "I love Layla, but she's wrong. If they soften even just a little bit, it will be the death of Reform." Pseudo Mass has said, "Sounds like Layla's just thinking about her own vote. It's time to be harsh, deport them all." Alf said, "There are plenty of legal migrants, who want," and this is the point Benedict was making, legal migrants who want the illegals deported too. Most of them came here to get away from the illegals. Katherine, though, has said, "I agree with Layla. It's too extreme language. If not explained properly, the haters will just feed off it." And David said, "Layla's looking out for her own ambitions. She'll be mayor candidate in London and worried the Reform policies will lose her that." News Junkie said, "Ben, Layla is saying Reform needs to tone it down because such rhetoric is spreading massive dislike for Nigel on the streets of London. He's being accused of being racist, left, right and centre." Well, I guess I guess, Hillary, he's been accused of being a racist for decades. I mean, I don't...
He's always been accused of being a racist. And to me, it goes back to, if you don't want somebody that's here illegally, why is that considered racist? Why can't it be considered law and order? Why can't it be considered good to have people that are going to contribute to the country and not take the country, that don't go into 4-star hotels and have free room and free housing and free food? And remember when GBNews went and interviewed some of those protesters? Remember that? They interviewed some of those protesters outside the hotels, and they were complaining because they didn't have enough controls for the video games that they were playing. There were 3 in the room and they only had 2 video game controls. This is absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah.
And so we need to go back to what he said, which is absolutely ludicrous for the working man, and that's what Nigel Farage is standing for, those that get up every day and work and pay their taxes.
Right, Tammy has said, if you've been here 40 years and not got legal citizenship, then that's on you, in reference to the example Benedict or Benjamin gave. Let's remind ourselves what Farage has said about migration previously. Let's take a look.
Many, many millions of people voted Brexit because they thought this was the way to take back control of our borders. And what have we had since? 130,000 young men crossing the English Channel in dinghies. Net migration going up in 2023 to 1 million a year. There are so many people out there who feel literally betrayed. Well, folks, I'm back, and they won't get away with it.
Benjamin Butterworth, question for you. I would argue that all those who came in the Boris wave, the 1-point-something million who came in the Boris wave, if they're not working by now, and especially if they're taking benefits at this point, I argue they should go back as well, not just illegals.
Well, I think Boris Johnson has said that the Boris wave is an unfair description, because he says many of those people were already in the UK, such as Europeans, and they left and came back. So he says the numbers are distorted. You know, look, if you don't work in this country...
No, it's mostly Indians and Sub-Saharans, actually. There was Hong Kongers, Ukrainians, fine, some Eastern Europeans. I think the bulk of it were Indians, Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, Nigerians. If any of those lot who came under the Boris wave from 2021 and are currently, or at least have never worked and are claiming benefits, I argue they should go as well, 100%.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, and I highly doubt I'm wrong, Ben. I don't think you can come here and just claim benefits. I think you have to have been here for 2 years before you can claim anything like universal credit or unemployment benefit or disability. And so, you know, it's not the case that you can just turn up and claim benefits in that way. And, you know, that's quite right and reasonably to say so. So I don't think that's the nature of it. Most people that come to this country come here because they want to work. They want to build a better life. They want to contribute. And we know that there are lower crime rates, lower unemployment rates among migrants than the native population. London, going back to the Layla Cunningham point, benefits enormously from immigration. I did my degree at London School of Economics, which was 70% overseas students, which go on to have the most incredible careers, build fantastic businesses. We should embrace immigration and the benefits of it. Yes, some people that take the mick, there should be stricter rules. But this agenda that somehow people come to Britain to take advantage, I think is a total distortion.
Just reading Reform UK's take on the Boris wave, Benedict, they say that the total lifetime cost of the 2021 to 2025 migrants expected to receive indefinite leave to remain from the years 2026, so from here until 2030, is roughly 622 billion in real terms, if undiscounted. 622 billion.
Yeah, I mean, great minds, because this was the point that I was going to make in response to this, which is that it doesn't matter in some ways. It doesn't matter in some ways whether or not people have been working very hard or not. The point is that they are going to end up costing the Exchequer far more than they will have ever created or put in to the system to begin with. And this is, I'm afraid, the problem with this sort of attitude towards immigration, which is ultimately reactionary. You've got to think of immigration effectively as a replacement for people just not having having children. That's what it is, because we're not having enough children in this society. So what do? We dope ourselves with human quantitative easing. And that's fine up to a point, except, of course, normally with a human being, you've got 18 years for that society and that economy to prepare for them to enter the workforce, and then they pay it off over the course of their life. If you just snap your fingers and suddenly lots and lots of people in their mid-40s and early 50s rock up, because those are the people that are necessarily the so-called skilled people, because they've got the experience and they're also prepared to work in certain industries, well, then you've got a sort of a very top-heavy number of people who are necessarily going to be claiming, they will eventually claim benefits, but it's going to be pensions, it's going to be NHS services. That's not financially sustainable. And whilst a lot of people will sit back and say, oh, but it's really mean to tell them to go home, we can't afford it. And that's the end result of all of this. And this is, I'm afraid this comes back to so many other issues in the United Kingdom right now. When financial reality comes head first down the road into people's perceptions of what is kind, what is nice, what is morally right, well, then you have to tighten your belt and go, actually, there's a reality to this. And that is that it is financially unsustainable to keep these people.
I'm sorry, to be clear, it's financially unsustainable to not take many working migrants into this country. There are entire sectors, whether it's hospitality or the care sector, that would have collapsed if we hadn't had migrant labour in recent years. The fact is that our workforce is shrinking. We have a disproportionate, a problematically large section of society that are claiming pensions at considerable cost and a shrinking percentage that are going to work. If we don't take working-age people in to do all sorts of jobs, we won't have the tax money to pay for anything.
Well, there's two things to say about that. The first is that we have record youth unemployment in this country, which is pretty impressive given the number of people that go to universities and are therefore highly qualified but aren't actually getting into the job market in the first place. And that's more to do with wages rather than anything else. That we don't actually lack the human capital. It exists. The other thing, of course, is if you want to take all of these people from these countries, developing countries as they tend to be, and bring them to the United Kingdom, that's fine, but that's a form of colonialism, and I think people should understand that. It's human asset stripping of third world countries, and it means that those third world countries will have to stay poor because their means of becoming wealthy are taken from them. And the final thing, of course, is this is all a bit of a nonsense, because we're sat here literally on the cusp of the great automation and AI revolution that is going to make all of these jobs, so many of these jobs, redundant. You won't need human beings for them in the first place. So why is it that we're still sat here as if we're about 30 years out of date going, well, we have to have these people because otherwise who's going to do all of the... Oh, wait, no, there aren't going to be those jobs in the first place.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure AI could, well, I don't know, work in care homes or, or strawberry fields picking fruit, but...
No, but they can work in banks and they can work in legal sectors, they can work in all kinds of places, and then the people that have decided to qualify as lawyers, they can go and work in other sectors, such as the care sector. It's going to mean a real realignment, and it's going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people, but this is what economies do. They evolve, they change over time. They always have done.
Yeah, and Benjamin, you're saying, you know, we need these people to replace the ageing population and so on, blah, blah, blah. But at what cost? Replacing the very fabric of our nation's identity, the demographic. I mean, London, for example, is 37% white British now, a nation's capital, not representative of its national identity. How soon until the rest of the country becomes like that? At what cost? I argue there's better ways of doing it. Last word to you.
Without those people coming and working in London, Britain would be bankrupt. This country is funded by London, and the City of London in particular, which has very high levels of migrant workers, and we should be grateful to that. And, you know, I think this whole logic doesn't follow. We need migrant workers to keep the country up.
How many Boris Wave arrivals are working in the city on trading desks and in financial services?
So I was just going to make the point that actually this is a mistake of Brexit, because until Brexit and leaving the EU, we mainly had white, culturally similar Eastern Europeans coming to Britain to work that were young and often would leave to start a family back where they came from. Now we have Nigerians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis that bring their whole family and often, you know, don't have any intention of leaving. They want to stay here. And so, you know, we've made it worse, not better, if culture is the question.
Is this the ethno-nationalist case for remaining in the European Union?
On that point, the voters didn't make it worse. The voters who voted for Brexit were betrayed by the establishment, and they were punished by the establishment. The plebs, the silly pleb voters who dared vote for stronger borders, were published by those in power for daring to strengthen their borders. And what happened? All the people that everybody used to moan about, the hard-working Poles, the Christian, Latvian, Eastern Europeans who grafted hard and contributed to the economy and had families, they all went home because they had to go home. And actually now if you look at Poland, their GDP soaring and their borders are strong. They're great, they're all going home, 500,000 left last year. But that lot went home, and then in replacement, to punish people who voted for Brexit, they imported the third world, who contribute, I argue, far, far less than those hard-working Eastern Europeans. And I say it, they did it on purpose. They punished the pleb voters for daring to vote for secure borders and an independent nation. And it's a disgrace what they did.
Look, I think a lot of these people work incredibly hard. When this programme finishes, I'll get a taxi home. I bet you it'll be someone that wasn't born in this country that moved here, and they're the only people that are working in the middle of the night to keep the country running. White British people don't work that hard.
Let's change the identity of our great nation for an Uber driver, shall we?
And in 5 years' time, it'll be a driverless car.
Yeah, hope the takeaway was worth it. Right, Benjamin, thank you. Benedict, gbnews.com/your say. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, horror audio from air traffic control has captured the hellish scenes after a person was hit by a plane and killed on a major airport runway here in America. This is a shocking story, very sad, but also tonight.
How do we lose our moral compass? We're simply enforcing the laws that Congress passed.
There's a new fight for funding for US Immigration's Customs and Enforcement, ICE, to you and me, and it could mean the World Cup is under threat. This is The Late Show Live. Back in a sec. Told you it'd be a sec. Right, the Trump administration is intensifying its push for tougher immigration enforcement, with Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin calling for major new funding for ICE and border protection. Markwayne Mullin says a 3-year funding package is needed to strengthen border operations and support immigration agencies all across the country. He's also warned that his department's preparation efforts to keep the upcoming World Cup secure, of course, England are playing here, I was going to say Brazil, Scotland, who are playing Brazil, they'll all be here. Maybe you at home are coming to the World Cup. But plans to keep the World Cup secure haven't been as proactive, quote unquote, due to the 76-day funding lapse.
It's the largest sporting event in the world. And leading up to it for 76 days, the Democrats want to shut us down. And one congressman right here in our own backyard, Democrat Congressman Emanuel Cleaver, I'm going to read you his quote. He said, "I voted against funding for the Department of Homeland Security because I refuse to endorse an agency that's lost their moral compass." How do we lose our moral compass? We're simply enforcing the laws that Congress passed.
Well, with me now is former ICE agent Tim Miller. Tim, great to see you. Thanks for joining The Late Show Live. So what's the situation here with the World Cup? Is Markwayne Mullin basically saying, well, he said, I mean, we haven't planned and prepped as much as we could. What kind of risk does that pose for Americans, the government as a nation, but indeed also World Cup fans?
Well, I think it's important to recognize, thanks for having me, by the way, that the U.S. is in the middle of a war. We had a presidential assassination attempt last week. We are in incredible internal divisions and hatred. And in the midst of that, we're saying to those that help protect our borders, plan for events, protect the president, oh, we don't have to fund you. Listen, this is nothing more than the radical left's attempt to continually defund the police. It's just at a whole new level. And I was on the job when there was a stalemate. It didn't go on 76 days. And I will tell you, it has severe effects on our ability to do your job if you don't know how you're going to pay the rent, how you're going to feed your family. And guess what? None of our politicians have to worry about that. They still get paid, and that's why their overall rating is the lowest in U.S. history.
So what's the beef then with the Democrats? They want certain, they want, for example, ICE agents to stop wearing masks. They want, do they want full-time body cams as well? Just tell us what they're after.
Yeah, well, they're certainly after all of those. They call it accountability. But here's the reality. Secretary Mullin is 100% right. We have lost our moral compass. I'd say we've lost our minds. If an American does not want to vet people coming into the U.S. and make sure that they're not here to hurt, kill, or destroy us. Or how about this, Minnesota, steal all of our taxpayer dollars under a massive fraud scheme? If you don't want to protect our nation through enforcing the law, then you got to question, what is your agenda here? And I think that's where we find ourselves.
Yeah, and it goes without saying, President Obama was known as the deporter-in-chief. He deported more than any president, I think, in recent decades. But why didn't he get the same sort of fanfare and the protests and the far left turning up at ICE operations and governors refusing to allow the police to work with ICE? Why is that? What's going on there?
Well, it's obvious the narrative on the left is very controlled, very deliberate. If you listen to the left's talking points, they're almost word for word. And here you have President Trump step in this administration, and it really does boil down to the rule of law. Are we going to be a nation of laws? I spoke to a lady whose husband was sent into the middle of the Minnesota issue, and she said, you know, it was a horrible situation because ICE agents aren't trained to be riot police. They're trained to do a specific job. They were simply trying to do that job. And the left took a hold of that narrative, called them Nazis and Gestapo. And the bottom line is we are in a real fight for our very soul in the U.S. I'm all for accountability for actions, but guess what? In the U.S., we have constitutional protections that make sure that happens. And where law enforcement goes astray, they are held accountable. And so I think we're just really in a fight. And I think Secretary Mullen is the right guy for this job because he's going to keep pressing this ridiculous effort to defund. And then, we got to go back and fight for our funding in September. And he's saying, look, the mission doesn't pause while you guys play politics. And it's important to remember Homeland Security has Secret Service, they have FEMA, they have a lot of different agencies that are critical to the survival of our nation. And so this issue matters an awful lot.
Very last question, Tim. I've heard whispers, especially from the White House social media operation, that they're renaming ICE as NICE, the National Immigration Customs Enforcement, NICE, NICE. Do you think that would go to some way to helping the sort of PR?
Well, I certainly think the narrative has to be changed regarding what ICE does. But let me be clear again. Remember, in the blue cities, we're seeing a common theme. That's where the police officers back up. They don't support the federal enforcement. Look, I was a police officer outside of Washington, D.C. When then immigration called us, we partnered up, here's a concept, to enforce the law, to be a nation of laws. And in our country, if we don't like the laws, we elect people that put the laws in place that the people want. But guess what? The majority of Americans are very strong supporters of having enforced border regulations to where we bring the right people in, people that are going to help the country, not people that are going to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah, and it's a great point about local police not engaging with ICE on the direction of governors and so on, because I would argue the chap who was killed in Minnesota was Alex Pretty. He probably wouldn't have been there that day when he was shot and killed because he had previously been spitting and kicking on ICE agents' cars. So if the police were doing their job there, he would have been arrested. He would have been, I don't know, probably charged. And then he probably would have thought about going back down there over fears of being arrested again. But he wasn't. The police didn't do their job. He was allowed to just run riot down there, and he ended up in a position where, unfortunately, he died. I mean, I'm not casting, saying who's at fault to what happened, but you increase the chances of being killed when you attend a protest. You're getting in agents' faces, armed law enforcement's faces, and you're obstructing their operations. I'm not saying he deserved to die, but I'm a gambler. I like playing poker. You massively increase your chances of something going horribly wrong. And if the police had dealt with that guy, he wouldn't have been there.
No, that's precisely the issue. And let's be clear, no law enforcement officer, and I did it over 30 years, both at the local and the federal level, that I ever worked with woke up and said, boy, I hope I have to take a life today. It's exactly the opposite. They swear to protect. And in this case, with several incidents, ICE agents should never have been put in that position. But let's be clear, too. It wasn't just the local police backing up from the law. It was local politicians and governors backing up from enforcing the law. And that begs the question, oh, you don't like immigration laws. Okay, let's not enforce that. What other laws do you decide you're just not going to enforce anymore? And does the Constitution of the United States even matter anymore? And I think that's a slippery, dangerous slope.
Yeah. Tim, thank you very much. Really appreciate you. Tim Miller, former ICE agent. Come back soon. Thank you very much. Hilary, this is kind of what Nigel Farage was talking about the other day with that big announcement about the detention centres.
Yes.
Saying they're going to park and build detention centres in the backyards of
the Greens.
Of Greens.
Yes.
Which is what they did here. They bust migrants, illegals, to sanctuary cities.
Yes.
They said, you want this? Here you go. Then you take them all.
They absolutely did. Remember how they quickly, from Martha's Vineyard, remember when Abbott, the Texas governor, he sent some of the illegals up to Martha's Vineyard, and of course that's where Obama has his home, and immediately he absolutely was disgusted about that. I just need to read this, though, when you talked about the number of protests, because I've got these figures here and I want to make sure I get this accurate. President Clinton deported 12.5 million deportations, 0 protests.
Over 8 years.
Yes. President Bush, 10.3 million deportations, 0 protests. President Obama, 5.2 million deportations, 0 protests. President Trump, 1.5 million deportations, 350 protests.
Yeah. That's
Those are the statistics for you.
I wonder how many Trump deported in his first term. Do you know?
Well, I think President Obama's been deporting more than President Trump did in his first term. I have to look at the exact statistics. And look, President Obama used ICE to deport people who are here in the country.
He gave Holman that award.
Well, they've been going 20 years. I went down on, as everybody knows by now, I bang on about it all the time because it was such good fun, but I went down on the jobs with ICE in Florida.
Yeah.
And those guys down there, some of them have been working for 20 years for ICE when it was first founded. It used to be something else. And when it became ICE, they were working 20 years ago, decades ago. And they said it was never like this. We never had the abuse we get. We never had the spotlight, the media, the protests. Never used to be like it.
Well, and talk about Florida, just recently, an illegal immigrant who, by the way, was a member of the gang MS-13, was stopped, arrested. But what did we have there? We had local, state, federal officials working together. Go to New York. You have the governor of New York right now trying to block ICE from working with local officials.
Yeah.
The bottom line here is that you have Democrats across the country, not just on Capitol Hill, but governors who are trying to block local police officials from working with ICE. That's dangerous. And look, the truth is it's dangerous not to fund the Department of Homeland Security. During the White House Correspondents' shooting, Secret Service agents weren't getting paychecks.
No.
You look at what's going on right now with not funding in full ICE. Well, the truth is that's a national security crisis. And by the way, I'll just say, Republicans have wanted to work with Democrats on this. Democrats said, well, we have to have body cams. Republicans agreed to that for ICE agents. Democrats said, we need more training. Republicans agreed to that. Democrats are playing politics right now. This has nothing to do with the policy.
We should play the clip from Chuck Schumer, to Matt's point, where Chuck Schumer actually says, that's the leader of the Democratic leader of the House, Chuck Schumer says it's immoral to shut down the government. And last but not least, don't forget Tom Homan, who's the head of ICE. President Obama gave him the Presidential Award.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, viewers and listeners in Britain, a quick reminder, Tom Homan, who I managed to speak to a couple of days ago at the White House, he worked in Obama's administration, and Obama gave him
the Presidential Award.
Gave him a big award for deporting so many people. Now Tom Homan works for President Trump's administration. He's a massive Nazi. So that's how it works.
And we'll leave you again with that statistic. President Obama, 5.2 million. President Trump, 1.5 million.
Let's cross to London. Benedict Spence and Benjamin Butterworth. Benedict, I don't think the World Cup will be impacted really by ICE. Tom Homan actually said, when I spoke to him 2 days ago, he said, we're not going to World Cup games to actively search for illegals or visa overstayers. He said that's not how it works. However, do we need a UK ICE? That's what I want to ask you. Come 2028.
I was going to say, so not about the World Cup at all. Do we need a UK ICE? The problem with that is, where do you start? What's your starting point? Because we all know that there are many people in this country who are here illegally. but it depends where and where they're not based. What we have in this country, and I'm not quite sure what the situation is in the United States, it might be similar, it might not, but we have two issues. One, we do not have a history of arming our police, so how it is that those people would be able to protect themselves whilst they were going about their job would be important because, and this is the second point, where it is that you predominantly find lots of illegal people congregating. And I suspect what you do is you'd find them in areas of the country where there are already large migrant populations. And the issue with certain parts of this country, and I'd take you back to the example being Hare Hills in Leeds, which was a riot. It's part of Leeds, and there was a riot that broke out a couple of years ago, and this was just before the Southport stabbing, which was why it was sort of very big in the mind, where social services came to take away a number of children that belonged to a family in the area that had not been treating them very well, basically. And what happened was a riot started because there were not enough police, and the local people, the local community, as they're called, often the communities, decided, we're not going to stand for this, we don't want this. That's what you'd get in the UK if you attempted to have a situation with our police, as they currently are, going into various communities, various parts of the country in various large cities, and trying to take away people who are here illegally. You would get large, violent responses to that, and unlike in the US, we're just not prepared for that sort of thing. We wouldn't tolerate it. The press would have a meltdown. Politicians would scream about Nazism, and the difference is, in the US, I think Donald Trump is a little bit more bulletproof, if you'll pardon the pun, to that sort of criticism than people are in the UK. You call Kier Starmer a fascist, and he'll lose his mind.
So are you saying that we can't do... Sorry to interrupt. Are you saying that we just can't do mass deportations of illegals then?
I think that it would take quite a lot of time, quite a lot of training, and it would take quite a lot of planning to get us from point A to point B, where we had A, the authorities in a position where they could carry it out, and B, a population that was pliable enough to actually put up with it. Otherwise, no, I don't think that I don't think that it would happen. I don't think it would work.
Oh. Well, that's a shame,
it's a bit depressing, isn't it? Sorry.
I don't want US-style policing on Britain's streets at all. I think that, you know, we have a proud history of policing by consent, and the way that the US does it, the way that France does it, is often far more violent, far more gratuitous, and whether it was their normal policing or ICE, I think it'd be pretty unpleasant. Actually, I thank Hillary for pointing out, as she did, that Democratic presidents had deported more than Donald Trump. The problem isn't that they deported it. If you're in a country illegally, you shouldn't be in the country. The problem is that Donald Trump wants to whip up culture war and racial divisions and to scare people in minority groups, and that is why people are offended and pardon me, people are offended and people protest, not the deportation itself.
Benedict, last word to you. I see you shaking your head.
No, I think that, you know, whilst it may be true that Donald Trump quite likes to be able to play into culture war issues, I think the very concept of Donald Trump has sent far too many American people round the bend. And, you know, it's a similar phenomenon to the one that we had it with Brexit here. There were some people for whom Brexit was the best thing since sliced bread, and it was always going to be great. And there were other people for whom it was literally Armageddon, and it's still ongoing. Donald Trump is the same thing, and I think it almost wouldn't have mattered what Donald Trump did when he got into the White House, this time or the last time. There was always going to be a very large cohort of Americans who were going to tear their purple hair out at the very idea of him being there.
I think one mistake the Trump admin did, and I loved it, and I thought it was great, was the social media clips, the funny videos, the Pokemon videos saying, gotta catch them all, referring to illegal migrants, all the kind of social media game, which I absolutely loved. But it was almost trolling the left, and I think by going so public on that, that's why it fueled the process. So I think if you're going to do it in the UK, it maybe needs to be not a secret force, of course, but it needs to be very discreet and just heads down, get on with the job, and just try and keep your head down, basically. Matt, last word to you. Do you agree with that point about the sort of trolling spark the process?
You know, look, President Trump has a style, and I actually think that a lot of it is transparency. I mean, look, I think a lot of the clips, some of them were kind of those Pokemon-type clips, but other clips were just, I think, just trying to show the American people what's actually going on out there, because you had the media lying.
I loved it.
You had a media narrative out there basically saying that ICE is not nice. ICE is nice.
Yeah.
And the bottom line here is ICE has got a job to do. And what's not nice is what Democrats have said about ICE, which is calling them fascists and Nazis. Yeah. What's not nice is that Democrats are holding up funding for ICE. And what's not nice is that Democrats are creating a national security crisis in this country, because in spite of President Trump securing the border, under President Biden, as we all know, we've said it before and we'll say it again, millions of people cross into this country. President Trump's trying to get them all out, but you got to find all of them. That's a real challenge.
Notably, though, they have stopped doing all that. The White House, the social media stuff, it's all kind of stopped. I guess they got the message. Still ahead on the Late Show Live, horror audio from air traffic control has captured the chilling scenes after a person was hit by a plane and killed tragically on a major airport runway here in America. You don't want to miss it. That's coming next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a cooler day ahead for many. We will see some showers across the south to start, otherwise lots of dry weather for the second half of the weekend and some sunny spells. Now it is going to be quite a cold start this morning across Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern parts of England, a patchy frost in places, otherwise largely dry and bright. Some showers pushing into the far southeast, and this could nudge slightly northwards at times, maybe bringing in some rain across London, and it will gradually turn more and more unsettled from the north in Scotland, some of this rain turning a little heavy at times. Otherwise dry and bright, lots of sunny spells, but it is going to be a cooler day ahead, particularly if you compare it to yesterday afternoon, so temperatures widely in the low to mid-teens. Now some rain to finish off the day across Scotland. This will continue to push its way southwards through the course of the evening, a little heavy at times. Actually across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, it will be dry, but we could see a bit more cloud across the skies to finish off the day. And it's a fairly similar picture elsewhere across England and Wales, and we could see some rain just linger across the far southeast to finish off the day too. But actually across central and southern areas, parts of Wales, plenty of clear skies through the overnight period, so a colder night to come with a patchy frost. We do have some clouds, some spells of rain sinking southwards, so temperatures not dropping quite as low here. But as it clears Scotland, once again another cold night to come with clear skies and a patchy frost. Temperatures not dropping as low as perhaps they did last night, but most towns and cities in the mid-single figures. So nevertheless, it is going to be a chilly start for many. And a little unsettled at times, some clouds, some showers sinking their way southwards. But actually once this clears, lots of dry weather, some sunshine to follow. And across the south, it will hold on to some dry weather for a time before eventually showers pushing through here. Still feeling fairly cool, temperatures widely in the mid to low teens, but still holding on to some slightly warmer temperatures across the south, highs reaching 17 degrees.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Frontier 4345, we're stopping on the runway. We just hit somebody. We have an engine fire. There was an individual walking across the runway.
Okay, we are rolling the trucks down.
We've got smoke in the aircraft. We're going to evacuate on the runway.
That was the horror audio from air traffic control, which captured the chilling scenes after a Frontier Airlines jet struck and killed a person on a runway at Denver International Airport in Colorado. Officials say the individual breached security, scaled a perimeter fence and was hit during takeoff. The pilot aborted the takeoff to Los Angeles after reporting an engine fire with more than 230 people on board. 12 people were reportedly injured, with 5 taken to hospital, and the National Transportation Safety Board is now investigating. With me now is aviation analyst and former pilot Kyle Bailey. Kyle, thanks for coming on the Late Show Live. Appreciate it. I've seen some pretty semi-graphic videos doing the rounds online of this incident. I understand the person, as we just said, somehow breached a fence, got onto the runway, and as this plane was hurtling towards takeoff, they were basically, without being too graphic, they were ingested into the engine. What happened? How does this happen, this kind of thing?
You know, that's the question that will have to be asked. These airports have security systems that range in the millions of dollars. I mean, just to give you an example, like in the New York City metropolitan area, New York, Newark Airport, LaGuardia, Kennedy, they have like $100 million security system that not only tracks the whole perimeter of the airport. So if, just to give you a hypothetical, if you were, say, to throw a baseball over an airport fence, the system would on its own triangulate where that baseball was thrown from and actually kind of like hone in on the perpetrator. And it's all done pretty much by itself. So I don't know how, if Denver had a system as intricate like as the New York City metro airports, but the question has to be asked, how does this happen? And in the future, how can we stop this from happening again? And also, once you breach the fence, how do you make it, a couple hundred yards for a few minutes without being apprehended or detected?
Yeah, we don't know whether it was intentional or an accident. I mean, I don't know, just speculating, probably the former. But what does this do, Kyle, as a former pilot? We hear a lot about train drivers who, God forbid, they maybe run somebody over or somebody jumps on the tracks, and it must have a long-lasting psychological effect. What do you think the pilots and the first officer and the crew in that cockpit are thinking tonight? What will Frontier Airlines be doing for them?
Well, the first thing that I noticed when you heard the air traffic control tapes, you could hear the pilot's voice, and you could pretty much tell that they were kind of startled, kind of like what is going on here? Like this is something completely out of the blue. You would never really expect that. Normally, there's nobody anywhere near those runways. You might have vehicles and tugs that are crossing the runways with clearances, but you'll never see a human being unless there's construction. But when there's construction, there's really a lot of safety protocols in place. Everybody's wearing vests. They pretty much have police marshaling them around. But to see one individual out there is kind of really, I don't want to say unprecedented. We had I want to say about 10 or 15 years ago in the New York City metropolitan area, next to Newark Liberty Airport, there's the New Jersey Turnpike. And at one point, somebody wandered off the roadway, climbed the fence, and pretty much walked across the runway to the terminals at the airport. And this is pretty much what that reminds me of, unfortunately. This ended tragically in this case.
Okay, let's just remind ourselves one more time the air traffic control conversation. Let's listen.
Tower Frontier 4345, we're stopping on the runway. We just hit somebody. We have an engine fire. There was an individual walking across the runway.
Okay, we are rolling the trucks down.
We've got smoke in the aircraft. We're going to evacuate on the runway.
Yeah, the 230 passengers on board, Kyle, they reported toxic fumes coming into the cabin. They had to evacuate the aircraft on the, I'm going to call them slides. They're probably not called slides, but, the big slides that come down. Yep. Just tell me, please, when somebody's walking across a runway, how close do you have to be to the plane for the engine to, sorry to be graphic, but to suck you in?
Well, it depends how much thrust is going through the engine. In this case, the airplane was at full takeoff power. It really depends on the aircraft type. But typically, you want to remain well clear. I mean, I'm probably, this to be on the safe side, I would say 30 or 40 feet from the aircraft at takeoff power, if not more. We've seen videos on YouTube of when those engines are at full thrust and you're screaming down the runway, they really could suck stuff into the intakes there. So, I would say you want to stay as far as possible, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet away when it's at full thrust. But again, it's all dependent on the aircraft type and the size of the engines and things of that nature. But the bottom line for any of your viewers, you want to stay as far away as possible.
God, awful. And thoughts with the person's family, whatever happened. We're not sure what happened. I'm sure we'll find out, but just tragic. Also for the passengers as well, I saw the video of them getting off the plane, going down the evacuation slides, the chutes, and looking into the engine. I mean, it's very clear what happens. The pilot,
yeah,
the crew.
I could see that.
Carl, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Have a great morning.
Sorry, mate, there's a delay. Go on, just finish.
Oh, no. You could just see from watching that video when I first saw it, of the passengers going down those stairs, and you could see the engine there. You could tell pretty much the stuff you don't want to see was in there, and it's quite unfortunate that the passengers and the crew had to see that.
Yeah. Kyle, thank you. Appreciate it. Carl
Thank you very
Bailey,
much. Have a
aviation
great
analyst
morning.
and a former pilot. Come back soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, really tragic story. Hilary, what was your reaction when you heard about this?
Well, first of all, I would assume maybe it's something suicidal, because to do that, who on earth walks onto an airport? Also, if it was suicidal, what about the consideration of all those passengers and everybody on that plane, the amount of people that have suffered from this? Obviously, it's a very sad situation. The person walked on there. I will make a prediction that now, obviously, every airport, pretty much everywhere in the world, is going to have to beef up their security in terms of taking care of their properties, because this could happen anywhere in the world.
Matt.
Yeah, well, look, first of all, if you fly out of Denver's airport, it's miles away from the downtown area. And then the airport itself, the fencing just around the airport, it's over 30 miles long. So, I mean, put that in perspective for a second. We're not talking about a small area here. But with that said, it is alarming that this did occur. There's no question, particularly that this airport in particular is going to have to really dissect that and figure out how it's possible this individual got onto that tarmac, onto the, onto the airport property. But look, at the end of the day, it's something I'm sure that not just the local authorities will look into. I'm confident that Secretary Duffy and others will be unpacking this as well. The goal is to ensure it doesn't happen again. And the bigger thing is not just if he's committed suicide or not, which I think is an important point by Hillary. We'll know soon, hopefully, what this is all about.
Because it wasn't an accident,
an accident, right? But if he was carrying, this could have been far worse. I mean, could this have been somebody who had explosives on him?
Yes, good point.
So I mean, it's something that really needs to be unpacked and figured out here.
Benedict?
Yeah, I think that security point is very important, because whatever the motivation was in this instance, it always could be much worse, and it is a curious thing actually. And we've seen this in the United Kingdom in the last couple of years. Palestine Action activists breaking into a military airbase, seemingly with impunity, and sort of one does wonder how it can be that the airports, which are famously very high on security, keep on having similar sorts of lapses, and this is going to have to be something that's addressed. This isn't even the first incident, though, of somebody being sucked into an aircraft's engine. Something similar to this happened in Italy a couple of years ago, and the whole thing was caught on camera and was posted all over social media. It's bizarre that they keep on being these break-ins like this.
Yeah, Benjamin, last word to you briefly.
Well, I mean, it's kind of alarming that, I can't take a large tube of toothpaste into the airport, but someone can make it over the gates and get onto the runway. It's horrifying. The video is horrifying. You hear the noise. It's so harrowing. But it's also really serious, because this could be someone with malintent. And I think that airports around the world, as someone else just said, they're going to have to check how they stop this happening, because it's evidently possible, as you say, in Italy and in this case recently.
Yeah, Neil, Yorkshire lad on your say, said, Ben, I listened to the whole transcript of the air traffic controller. They were amazing. He dealt with it brilliantly, and all the other aircraft as well. Yeah. Also, we've been talking about suicide tonight. If you've been affected by suicide or you're in a difficult place, you can call Samaritans on 116 123. Day or night, 116 123. Call Samaritans. Right, thank you for tonight, Hilary.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Matt, thank you so much. Benedict and Benjamin, you've been great. Double pairing, great duo. Thank you so much for tonight. I know the viewers have loved you as well. We'll catch up soon. And viewers and listeners as well, as always, thank you for your loyalty. Thank you for staying up with me. I'll see you tomorrow from midnight in the UK. Fingers crossed for Arsenal against West Ham tomorrow. Until then, enjoy your Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Sweet dreams and goodbye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Quite a cooler day ahead for many. We will see some showers across the south to start, otherwise lots of dry weather for the second half of the weekend and some sunny spells. Now, it is going to be quite a cold start this morning across Scotland, Northern Ireland and northern parts of England. A patchy frost in places, otherwise largely dry and bright. Some showers pushing into the far southeast, and this could nudge slightly northwards at times, maybe bringing in some rain across London, and it will gradually turn more and more unsettled from the north in Scotland, some of this rain turning a little heavy at times. Otherwise dry and bright, lots of sunny spells, but it is going to be a cooler day ahead, particularly if you compare it to yesterday afternoon, so temperatures widely in the low to mid-teens. Now, some rain to finish off the day across Scotland. This will continue to push its way southwards through the course of the evening, a little heavy at times. Actually, across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, it will be dry, but we could see a bit more cloud across the skies to finish off the day. And it's a fairly similar picture elsewhere across England and Wales, and we could see some rain just linger across the far southeast to finish off the day too. But actually across central and southern areas, parts of Wales, plenty of clear skies through the overnight period, so a colder night to come with a patchy frost. We do have some clouds, some spells of rain sinking southwards, so temperatures not dropping quite as low here. But as it clears Scotland, once again another cold night to come with clear skies and a patchy frost. Temperatures not dropping as low as perhaps they did last night, but most towns and cities in the mid-single figures. So nevertheless, it is going to be a chilly start for many and a little unsettled at times. Some clouds, some showers sinking their way southwards, but actually once this clears, lots of dry weather, some sunshine to follow, and across the south it will hold on to some dry weather for a time before eventually showers pushing through here. Still feeling fairly cool, temperatures widely in the mid to low teens, but still holding on to some slightly warmer temperatures across the south, highs reaching 17 degrees.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me. Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only